Where this morning?
How's good yourself? I didn't look, make sure I had my name in front of me.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, well, I think, I don't think they do.
Yeah.
I didn't look. This is mine.
There's a date. I asked her, I said, well, what's the difference? We had the
Oh, hell, we got a new agenda.
Mike Hurley called me about something. I forget what. Oh, he
live in a house.
Yeah, he told me about that.
I
He got it for $1,300.
I'm in the middle of Michigan State when the sucker calls me about that.
Anyway, when I had him on the phone, I just got through going through the financial stuff. And I knew that, you got this different pay periods that always screws up. But in the security, it was about $6,000 or $7,000. So when I had him on the phone, I said, Mike, I said, any reason why your payroll was so much higher this past month? Oh, no, really gets all excited. I said, well, don't worry about it. I called Tanya. No, I'll find out. I said, don't worry about it. I just happened to mention it. Then about 2 hours later, Tanya said, Mike, come in there. She said they got a glitch in their software. And it won't recognize what they tell it to recognize the whole thing. And she said you're right, that was way out of there. So I had no intention.
Why is the new agenda?
There's a date that was in there on the minutes.
It's the 13th, not the 7th.
The date.
Exactly.
They had February the 7th on the
I didn't even see that. No, mine had.
I did.
Mine's got 13.
So you got the new one.
You got a new one, that's right.
No, sir.
Oh, you both of yours are right?
Well, aren't we special?
No.
Oh, the minutes, okay.
Yeah.
Stranger, who was that next to you?
The date was right, but the minutes were here.
That's,
Whatchamacallit.
Wait, I'll let you go, but there you go.
I'm going to have
I had a few, but I just worked it out with them directly.
well, nothing,
Anybody seen these?
no.
Okay, well, I was just saying.
Have you? You've seen it?
No, I haven't seen
I
any.
sent that email out over the weekend. I thought it would be better if we had a little preview of it, so we had.
Well, I don't think we're going to decide anything today.
No,
We're just going to listen today.
Sure, we're
Right.
going to
So the last time for their proposal, they had everything.
You'd have probably got a binder this thick. They just sent it out. Because I think they're going to offer more than one option. I was on the impression. I can see option 1, option 2. Yeah, 3 different options.
They're hard to read from here.
Yeah.
Bring them up front.
We're going to have to
At least it looks like they
form a line over there.
Yeah, the blue's
We're going
gone.
to form a line over there and go through
But
it.
I love blue.
Yeah.
If you'd have had any input at all on that clubhouse, there would have been blue all over that side.
You mean the schoolhouse?
Huh?
You mean the schoolhouse?
Elementary school?
I swear that every time it looks like a schoolhouse.
Were you on the well, you were probably out there.
No, you were the Lone Ranger in that.
The roof.
Oh.
I asked for how long
When's the last time you got some here?
get some sample of the colors.
I don't mean that.
All of a sudden they start putting out shit.
It's funny how that came and went.
God damn, it looks like a shit up there. Oh man, they come. Pufferberger and something will come down on me. I said, well, go look at any hog lot and any chicken coop, and you'll see the same stuff.
There we are. Look for that. Where you been?
3 or 4, depending on how many you have.
That, what's her name, Mitchell, lets you on site to check the color?
Thank you, ma'am.
Probably lucky we got out here to show you.
Did you ever tell us heard about that?
I heard about it. They wouldn't let you do anything. Kicked you out of the building, didn't
Well,
they?
No, they kicked
yeah, we're sitting there with a public works director who is denied management of the job. He gives it to his secretary.
Yeah.
And of course, Dave was the lone ranger on the board at that time. And the son of a bitch denies me access as a supervisor to the project. That was incredible.
And the real thing was when they bought each other $250 boots, steel-toed boots, so they could walk in. Mitchell got a pair of $250 boots, and Retailer got a pair of $250 boots.
That was so
See, you guys didn't mail it out.
How long is this meeting supposed to
Morning, Rick. Mike, we got lunch today?
Nope, we can certainly get it delivered.
Gator, you want to come back about 2?
Did a number, didn't it? Oh, here comes the third one. Didn't you tell him we wanted 5 options?
We got the options now. Where's the dartboard and the darts?
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got
I guess.
for you.
I assume we'll do 1, 2, 3.
Assume they will.
You'll look back upon this as what an enlightening experience I had.
I'm glad you guys said no. Open up that can of worms.
I said, it didn't make a difference. Your choice.
Spend more time on the golf course and entrance signs, and just stress that, and then landscaping is a big deal. Just take your time and go through it, man. You can choose. It's Chinese menu.
Oh, I see.
Chinese food menu. Understand?
So if you play in the morning, then you come back for dinner later?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize the sign-up sheet was up, so I didn't get there quick enough.
Pitching contest?
Fills up in a hurry.
Yeah, that secret one?
Tournament.
Oh, in fact, I ripped Howard a little bit. I said, when you send your notice out, you ought to tell people when you got it posted so they can go sign up. Only because I got pissed. Hey, Mike, you ready?
At your convenience.
Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amazing.
I need 3 people on that.
Oh, did you? Good morning, everyone. Announcements. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for Friday, March 13th at 9 a.m. at the Community Center. Please silence your cell phones. Mr. Norcross?
Yes.
Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I have no comments. Anybody on the board have any comments?
No, sir.
Well, I've got one couple on the treasurer's report. To Neil, shows memberships budgeted for 30,000. I assume that these are all the non-golf memberships. Is that right?
Yes.
And you were talking about how many members we had on the tennis program, tennis and pickleball, but we only have 10,000 in the bank right now on that, a third of what's budgeted. Is there reason for the deficit?
Well, I know that, like pool, for example, we get a majority of our pool memberships renewed August, September. So we see a huge influx there. And they just, they come in. We haven't really seen a decline. It's been steady going. I would have to pull the numbers, from last year to see about this time what we were doing, what we had taken in so far.
Yeah, I would have thought with the snowbirds all in that we would be much further ahead than we are. But you expect that to meet budget then?
I don't see a reason for it to decline. Like I said, we've been very busy taking in memberships. So, but with the anniversary of the pool being in September, we do see a huge increase during those months as well.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. The other question I had, Tanya, on the water and sewer utility fund, we show revenues over expenses, and we're running a deficit of $611,000. That seems like a surprising number to me.
Are you on page 3?
Yes. Amended budget 12 months ending in September. Revenues over expenses were down $611,000.
Let's see what that is going to be reading for that. Let's try
the number, the $611,000, that's the amended budget number. The actual number, we're already $155,000 for the 4 months ending. So we're ahead. Our revenues are over expenses by $155,000. The reason that you see a negative $611,000 is because we budgeted some of our reserves in the utility fund for some of the projects there. So those are just the 12-month ending budget numbers. But actually, we are $155,000 ahead.
Okay, that's what I needed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Public comment? Allison, call the roll.
Supervisor Hulbert?
Yes.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Halbig?
Yes.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
President McCullough?
Yes. Next on the action agenda is signage and landscape presentation. Michael, I believe you're the lead on that.
Right. We've got Valerie Grubb and Terry Hancock here to basically go over all of the options. The thought being she would make the presentation today, leave the information with you. We would take the options and actually display them for a couple of weeks to try to maybe possibly at the golf clubhouse, possibly here, whatever is convenient, and then pick up resident comments. We'll also advertise it and do an email blast so that folks will come by and take a look at it, and then actually make a decision at the 13th meeting over which one you like, and then go out to bid accordingly.
Okay. I didn't catch the gentleman's name. What was it?
Terry Hancock.
Terry?
Is that right?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Valerie, you're on.
I'm on? Okay. I think I need that. We're going to go through options.
Okay, if you would, go ahead and pull the microphone out of the handheld and just use that.
Well, I think I can stand here. Let me
Okay.
see. Is that close enough? Yes? Let's go through option 1 book. And I believe that some of you have seen a bit of this design previously. And it was...
In your proposal, you mean?
Yes, and it was favored by you. On location number 1, what we've done is on the ones that are going to be landscaped, we have put a landscaping picture first, hopefully. We're hoping all your books are going to look very similar. So this would be the first entrance at Sun and Lake Boulevard. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
We're proposing, I've worked with the county quite a bit, trying to get them to okay us moving that sign closer to Highway 27. And what we have to do is just put it on the site plan. The gentleman makes sure that there is not a visibility issue as far as the triangle that goes. But I don't think there is at all. So we will move it as close as they will allow us to move it, so everybody can see it on the oncoming traffic coming and going. So we have created a V-shaped sign, 2 single-face signs. The landscaping is the first, and then you see the landscaping page, aerial, second. And the first entrance sign, number 1, would be if they don't allow us to move the sign forward, then we would use the existing sign and change it on this location and on this design. So this option 1, we would be reusing a portion of the existing sign if they won't allow us to move it. I don't think there's going to be a problem with that. So if you look at the aerial on the entrance sign with the landscaping, you want to talk about that, Terry, or is that self-explanatory? You need to let us know how much in depth you want us to go in with the signage.
Essentially, the landscape's altered to accommodate the V in the sign, and we can move the higher canopy trees within the V of the sign and then uplight them to create an effect over and above the sign, since the sign's a V, and that's represented in the landscape in the aerial plan.
Let me ask a question. You got an option 1 and option 2 on the sign. If they allow us to move it, it'd be option 2 that would be okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Would you like us to go into some technical specifications on the signs?
We'll let you know when we get tired.
Well, signs 1 and 2 are all aluminum. The top caps, the molding, everything is aluminum. The sun and lake on both signs, on the main entrance signs on Highway 27, are a reverse channel letter. I have one over here. It's upside down. Fabricated out of metal. It's illuminated with LEDs on the inside, and then it's offset on the aluminum. And then in the evening, it creates a halo effect. It's a very beautiful effect. So those are signs 1 and signs 2.
Valerie, excuse me, have you costed out everything with regards to the options and so forth?
No, we don't know which you want to choose. Once you narrow it down a little bit, we had a ballpark figure on option 1 at the beginning, but we've added more signage. We've taken away a message center. We've non-illuminated some things.
Well,
and added more landscaping.
The cost might come into play between different options if there's a significant cost difference.
We can, if you like a design, we can work it to your budget. Within reason. If there's one that you like more than another.
What you want us to do is pick what we like, and then you're going to cost it out, and then we'll put on gloves after that, huh?
Right.
You may like one directory sign that's with another design versus the other, and a la carte it.
Right. It's not that you choose one of those books or the other. You might see that you like a couple items in book 2 and combine that with book 1, and that creates the proposal. So,
Terry, is that the same procedure then for the landscaping element?
Right. You got to understand that these different signs with different sizes, height, width, length, create a different effect as far as landscape on the height and selection of the plant as well. So the selections are pretty consistent throughout the signs, but the sizing could be slightly different based on the size sign that you choose.
Would we be better off putting our number out there to start with, and then saying, well, we like option 1, here's our number. We don't want to exceed this number, and then work back into that, because probably everybody is like, if you're shopping, you're gonna want to pick the Cadillac instead of the Ford. But we got a number that we don't want to go over, so either that or just let the chips fall where they may, and then come back and say, hey, wait, we're not going to spend that much.
Well, that being said, if we flip to sign number 3. Flip to sign number 3. And what we've done on that, this is the first roundabout. And the first roundabout is your welcome sign to Sun and Lake, and we want everybody to know that the public is welcome. Well, on these specifications, if you look at the illuminated portion of it at night, you have a push-through letter, which means that we have the aluminum. We route out the aluminum that says Sun and Lake, the line underneath it, and then we push Plex through it. It could be as thick or as thin as you want it, and it creates the same effect, but at a lesser price. So we have options with this. I have one over here, but I don't want anybody to get distracted with the blue background. I think there are issues with the blue last time.
She's got a good memory.
But the Duranodic bronze would be the color that we have proposed. We haven't put any colors on this. Would be on the face of that.
Probably the price variability is going to be in the major signs, the entrance signs and the like the roundabout sign. The others should be probably pretty generic, I would think. But
well, when you have 24 signs, that's.
If I could add about the budget, if you remember, we originally started out with $250,000 for landscaping, and that was the original budget. And then the board made the decision to add signage, but they said, we'll add to the budget once we get the numbers. So you really haven't discussed what your budget is for signage yet. So just, kind of keep that in the back of your mind.
And we've got some options that I think enhance the aesthetics on the golf course on the entries too, that we'll just discuss later that will affect that budget. And I don't know if those dollars come from the same place or where they come from, but it's all a part of the sign project. But I don't know, the dollars might have to come from somewhere else for that, if it's what you want to do.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So do you want to go over? So we had some restrictions with the county on sign number 2 on the entrance sign. Just so you know, on that one, the maximum height was 12 feet. Where's option 2?
Valerie, you didn't mention what the height was on the entrance sign, and I think they may have missed that.
On number 1,
yes.
I believe that was 12 foot also on number 1. And it was my understanding through many conversations with the county that this was pretty much up to Sun and Lake that made the decision on how much square footage on sign number 1 and how high you could go. So this is pretty much up to you on that decision.
Okay.
Now, the cabinets at the bottom of sign number 1, the Island View, the Public Welcome, and the Sun and Lake Golf Club, those are all illuminated cabinets. So those will internally illuminate at night also.
If we don't have a situation with the main entrance sign number 1, why do we have one with the north entrance sign, height-wise?
It's just... It's who owns the property, and...
Wait, is it the north entrance sign, or is it the roundabout?
Well...
Where the county had the issues?
No, it's the north entrance sign. No, it's the first location that they had.
Yeah, well, that's...
No, not the roundabout. And it's my understanding that we have to get this approved, the roundabout, with FDOT. And you don't know who owns the roundabout, right?
The county
The county
I believe
owns.
that is county right-of-way.
Okay.
And I think the issue may have to do more with traffic issues and setbacks off the road and collisions, if you will. I can't think of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as interested in aesthetics as they are some safety issues and visibility issues.
Mm-hmm. It's all about visibility, mostly with FDOT.
I was just curious that we have no issue with one of our main signs, and we have an issue with the other one.
Well, you own that property.
We own the entrance property, and we own the north entrance property. We do not own the roundabout property.
Well, I'm clear on that, the roundabout.
But the north entrance is a different zoning. And I was on the phone many times.
I'd have to check. I haven't looked at that. But did you deal with the zoning people or Mr. Gavaretti?
I've got a list of names.
Okay.
Well, what's your take on that? I mean, if we've got a height limitation, how much does that detract from?
On sign number 2, your sign now for the north entrance is 10 foot, plus or minus.
And this is 12?
And this is 12. Oh. And your visibility is wonderful there. So there wouldn't be any reason, I don't see any reason to want to go any higher with that.
I was going down the road that it might have been lower than what we have now.
No.
2 feet up. Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
and the main one is 4 feet higher. Yeah.
And we did leave you room. We left you 3'2".
What sign are you on?
I'm on sign number 2.
Okay.
Where later, when this north entrance becomes very busy, that you would be able to possibly put in some different cabinets or advertising of such. So there is an area where you can do that later.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions about the roundabout? Sign 3.
Well, where are we exactly? Have we resolved any issues we have with the county on that?
No, we're not in there a visibility problem at all in that roundabout. So
it's just a matter of getting approval then, Mike, in the right of way? Is that the idea? Okay.
They've been very cooperative. They just want to make sure that there's not an issue with the traffic.
Okay. While we're on the roundabout, there's some budgeting issues there as well. The design that I created for the landscape involves taking the street light out that's on the west roundabout, and then what is that, a fountain, Michael, or that big concrete slab on the... Anyway, it involves demoing that too. It looks like there's underground service to the power that you have there that supplies your lights, but there's above head service to the street light that's in the roundabout. So really, after this design, aren't necessary. They'll detract from the illumination on the sign and illumination on the landscape as well. So we get into areas of, when we're writing the scope, do we want Sun and Lake to be responsible for that demolition?
Those are issues we'll work out at a staff level. Some of that demolition work we can do for them. Some of the utility relocation we can handle. But we'll get into that level of detail once the board chooses A, B, or C.
Okay.
You proposed demoing this whole thing, right?
Right.
So on the 2 roundabouts, which would be sign 3 and sign 5, the proposed landscaping would be to demo everything in the existing roundabouts and to add new plants.
That design increases visibility, but it also increases aesthetics as well. Right now, there's stuff placed all throughout the roundabout. I'm condensing it to the center of it, directly behind the sign, and clearing the visibility on the outside edges so you can see around the roundabout.
You're talking about the first roundabout?
Both of them look the same.
Well,
the same design.
From the planning
standpoint.
Yeah. I have an issue with the sign in the west roundabout. I think we're getting back into busy territory, and I don't think I think that's more of a distraction than informative.
That's not the roundabout sign.
Sign number 5.
Give me sign location 3.
Yeah, we need to take some notes.
5.
3 and 5 are the same.
Sign location
Sign will be
5, second roundabout.
Okay.
Oh, I see it.
Too busy?
Well, the sign, yeah, we have that problem right now with similar signs that we've got just too much information on there, and it's too small, and the driver can't really absorb that information. I just wonder if we're getting into the same kind of territory.
We can make that bigger. That was a question once we put this on the landscaping, but we were in the middle of everything, and like I say, this is for you guys to mark up how you want to mark them up, preferably one set that we could see.
So, give me some clarity on 5. Do you want that bigger, or do you want that with less information on it?
Well, with the planning you have designed, I think any bigger sign would detract from the landscaping, frankly. But I just wonder if there's some kind of alternative that we might put in there, maybe not in that same location, and maybe not with that many points on it, that we can resolve it. I don't know. That's what do you guys think? It just kind of seems too busy to me.
We can make the sign wider. Well, I mean, we can.
From the landscape, I'll adjust the landscape to accommodate the sign and still make it look good. That's not a problem. So get the sign right. Get the sign right, and let me
What
adjust
about
the landscape.
breaking the sign, having 2 signs? One as you travel to the roundabout, have one sign with 2 or 3 items on it, and then another sign in the roundabout with 2 or 3 items on it. Something like that.
On the right-of-way, on the side. We could do that. That's a good idea.
Okay.
Would be.
Like put the district office sign on the right-hand side of the road or something as you're coming in.
As you're coming into it down the doctor's office or whatever, to put things, whatever it is.
Well, you already have that on the previous sign. We are now. You already have that on the previous sign. Just 2.
Okay.
See, on the previous sign you got 7 items. No, on the page before that.
That didn't work well, did it?
See, that's on Ponce, and that has 3 signs, and it's very distinct. They're just 3 items.
Very readable.
Very readable. And you have enough sight coming down there. Yeah, see, that's on Ponce. This is inside the circle. And here you're navigating the circle, and you're trying to read 4 different things.
So you really like the Ponce sign?
Oh, Ponce is fine.
Okay, so we just
to me, it's very clear. I mean,
either condense or split what we have on 5.
Well, something so that you just got a quick shot at that sign, because you're coming into the roundabout and you don't want to be stopping to read the damn sign. So
I think the right-of-ways is a very good suggestion, because that's what we've done on location number 4, which would be coming up to Sun and Lake Boulevard on Ponce de Leon, which would be in the right-of-way around where the school is, so you know what is coming up when you're coming to the stop sign. So that's a great suggestion.
Similar to 4.
Okay.
Is this the sign on Ponce number 4? Is that real scale? I mean, is that the way it's going to look as we're in real time driving up there? It's not enlarged, is it?
No, it's not enlarged.
Yeah, well, it's a very good sign. I think it's informative and simple.
And those are 5'6" high by 5'4" wide. And all of the directories throughout options 1, 2, and 3 they have an aluminum backer, and then both sides have a condensed sign foam on both sides of them. And it is routed for the letters in the Sun and Lake, and then the arrows are condensed in. Now, another way to save money would be if we didn't do sign foam, But Dick, you liked sign foam, so we picked up on that.
Wait,
Would be-
explain what that is. If you look out here at the beginning of the entrance to the community center, the new sign we put up is what's called sign foam.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a high density.
What we had was difficulty with when you have raised attached letters, they became attractive nuisances for young vandals. We were constantly replacing letters, so what we did is they went in and said, okay, we're going to basically etch the sign and attach it. So that's what they're talking about.
Okay.
One way that you could cut numbers would be to make it an aluminum sign. And then we put vinyl on top of that, digital graphics on top of that. The Sun and Lake would be a digital graphic. You would have an option of reflective vinyl if you wanted that, so people could come up to it and see it at night. So there's options, but those are less expensive options. Come up to sign 6, which is the district office. And we tried to keep the sizes consistent for product sizes that come in. You want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I like that one. They're all illuminated. That's the main thing.
Anything about sign 6 that you like or don't like? While we're here, we need, because they're all going to be pretty consistent on the directories.
This is good. It's very clean.
Okay.
Kurt said it was illuminated. Is that right?
It's not. No, it's exterior illuminated.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a light on it, right?
There's a light on it.
Right.
What about number 4? You show a light on that one.
We did.
Is that lit as well?
It will not have a light.
It will not have a light.
And if one designer put a light and one didn't, exterior illumination, once everything's in, isn't going to be really that much of a problem to do. It's the internal illumination, but so this isn't an
Well,
issue.
there's probably not power there.
You're right. Okay.
Those would be
Location number 7.
the non-illuminated ones be better with that reflector. Good. So the headlights would pick it up.
We decided to go with the non-illuminated sign here. Everything's exterior illuminated. We did, for viewability, we did 2 single-faced signs so they can be seen coming in and going out.
You're on 7?
I'm on 7. Did I go too quickly?
I missed.
No.
Okay.
We weren't paying.
Yeah, I know you weren't. Oh, that sign, those 2 signs are 10'5" by 17.
Where's the location specifically?
It's at the island view and the pickleball and the clubhouse. The entrance right there where you've got that one single face sign.
Oh, okay.
We've done
a V?
2. Yes, 2. And then the landscaping.
Are you on 7 or 6?
Where's
We're on
that?
7.
I got it.
Well, this is right near the roundabout, right? That's
Right off the roundabout. There's a mailbox actually on the tip right now.
so you're reading it both ways, going west, going east.
Right.
We originally, when we proposed this, had a message center, an LED for this, but, and like I said, everything's whatever you guys want. If you feel that you might like a couple of line message center to say events that were going on at the time, then everything's an option. But we were trying to keep things within a reasonable amount of money.
The landscape there, you've got hedgerows on either side of that island that are going down, and we're kind of altering that landscape to spill right into the sign. If you can kind of see it in the aerial for 7.
I don't have an aerial for 7.
That would be back.
The back one, 6 and
Back.
7 aerial are shared on the landscape.
Oh, okay. That's where I'm getting
Hey, Mike, I got a question. That the 7 lots that got turned back to the district that you sent in your email,
That's not the one that's got all the Sylvester palms on it, is it? You said they're right on the...
No,
oh, okay. Okay, I just wondered.
Oh, you wanted to get some free trees?
Well, I just... All right.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Thinking. Okay.
So on all three options, we did two single-face signs at this location.
How far back is that going to be off of the circle?
We'll make sure that there's we're going to have to have a county person. I will have to have a county person come meet me out here, and we'll have to go through the whole thing.
About, based on scale, that's about where the sidewalk crosses. It's behind the mailbox, probably 6 or 8 feet. You know where the mailbox is?
Well, the only concern I have is that when they send out a shotgun, you got all those golf carts going down. Is that sign going to block their view?
No. You'll have to have visibility. It'll have to be set back enough that there's visibility.
Yeah.
We
now,
have
the third golf cart sign can't see. The first one can.
Right.
Valerie, I just wonder if on this particular sign, because we're going from the district office, it says district office.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need that large Sun and Lake? They've already been exposed to 2 signs. They know they're in the community. I just wonder if we could use that space a little bit better to talk about with the golf club and restaurant up on top.
Sure.
And then with the pickleball and so forth. I think we're wasting space there on Sun and Lake.
So we just want to reverse the bottom to the top and enlarge that. Okay.
And then put pickleball on the bottom.
Yeah.
You want pickleball on the bottom? You don't want pickleball? I thought that was popular now.
Well, we want it in a place that's very readable.
Sure. Okay.
That's up to you to decide. But once we get inside of Sun and Lake, we're really talking about facilities.
Right. Got it.
And
okay.
I'd have the same comment, I guess, on the driving range one, number 8.
Eliminate.
Deer Run and Turtle Run is good.
So you want Sun and Lake eliminated completely?
Just make it smaller on the bottom.
Smaller.
Reverse it with driving range.
Right. What did you say about a driving range?
What sign are you on, Mr. McCullough?
8.
I jumped to 8. Well, I thought we were
done with 7. Are we going too fast for you?
Yeah.
No, it's okay. We're good. We've got a lot to go through. You're good.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah, we're on a different sign then.
Well, it's pretty much the same approach as both of those signs.
Right.
So.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the most important thing of that sign would be the driving range.
All right.
Not Sun and Lake.
Got it.
This is an area I want to talk about on the golf course. Let's grab this.
Take the mic with you, Jerry.
Right now you pull in here, and it's an issue of where to go. You don't know where to go. If you go this way, the landscape here creates an issue of visibility of the course. You can't see it. So what we've done, sign 8, directs you, and we can rework it a little bit to what you want since you're already in the community. We've got signage taking you to Turtle. We've got signage taking you to the driving range. And we got signage taking you to Deer. Now, I envisioned here a big welcome to Deer with a visibility of the course. So it eliminates the landscape that's here. It eliminates the pine that they've chopped in half. I don't know if you noticed the pine tree that's right up against the power line that they chopped in half. Well, that's actually a visibility issue to the next sign that's here. Mm-hmm. So we open this all up, and then when you come in to one, we've gone into the bank here, and you'll see it on the next sign, and created a retaining wall, which creates a space for lettering for the golf course. Okay. And it opens up the view of the golf course, and the sign doesn't block any of the view. It's into the hill, and it creates a pretty sharp look. So it's
Is that number 9?
9 and 10. That whole area is 8, 9, 10. That's
Okay.
see. You can see how we've eliminated all of that, and you could actually take the turf and spill it out all the way at that point. You know, this whole bed could be turf all the way out to the cart path.
Ooh, okay.
And then you see the rendering of the wall. He's to it there.
Number 10, eh?
Yep. She's got it.
That looks good.
If you're familiar, any of y'all familiar with Reunion Golf Course?
Yep.
They do a lot of shaved coquina rock walls on Reunion, and they take big coquina blocks and they shave them into slabs. And what I've designed with them is those slabs of those coquina rock for the wall, and then they've devised a way to anchor the letters within the courses of the wall so they'll protrude from the wall. It's going to turn out really sharp.
Yeah, this looks good.
Would it be enough contrast with that material you're talking about?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You've got that coquina rock's limestone, so it's white, and then it has what you'll see is iron staining in it, so it has tones of yellow and orange in it that creates the contrast, and then you've got black lettering, so it's gonna look good. It actually plays a little bit off some of your logos too, the oranges and the yellows that are in the rock. So while we're on that issue, I'm gonna stand on my soapbox a little bit on the golf course. Turtle.
Number 15.
Yeah.
Number what, 15?
Mm-hmm. While you're turning there, kudos to your finishing hole that you have going to the clubhouse over water with a beautiful island green. I think that's an excellent golf hole. It's fun.
15-8.
Yep.
Or just 15.
So as you're coming down the path, you get a view of the golf course, but it's not the entrance to the golf course. You're driving past golf holes to get to number 1. And I would propose strongly that we do the same retaining block wall there on 3. That's hole 3, right?
Yeah.
Turtle Run golf course, recessed into the wall, landscape around it real nice, and that's number 1. That creates your finishing hole over water, just like on your other course, and it also fixes a lot of your traffic issues. And it does something for you financially as well. As we're designing the entry to this golf course a mile down the road, we've got a lot of alteration to do in cart path, signage, and landscape that doesn't necessarily have to be done if we make that the entrance to the course and that the number 1 hole on the course. And it'll save a lot of money on the landscape cart path side for our design work on down there where the current number 1 is now. To split the traffic now, we're pouring another cart path that goes to 1 from a V, and also creating a big landscape area that wouldn't be necessary. I think your money's better spent there. And it also creates a little bit better logistics issue. You don't have to drive all the way down to get to number 1. You get to number 1, you finish on 18, you go straight to the clubhouse. And I don't know what it'll take to get that done, but it makes the course flow better. It makes the course, to me, look better, and it makes it a lot less confusing, because if you're not familiar with a golf course, you can definitely get lost out there. So,
okay.
Soapbox. I'll exit my soapbox on that one.
Any feedback?
Well, we've had a long discussion about that a few months ago, and at that time was determined that not to move it because of the staging of starts and everything. It just didn't. It was just a traffic jam problem.
Well, I think we ought to revisit it.
Sure.
If you go up to number 3.
Oh, sorry.
I was there at 7:30 this morning reviewing my argument to you, and I walked up there, And I said, okay, I know what they're going to say. You can't stage carts here. There's no room. Get up on top of the tee box, and there's the worst layout of landscape bed there between tee and green on 2, and you could stage as many carts as you want right there in that space. You have plenty of room to get off the sidewalk, get up on the hill, and stage it. But so that could be solved very easily, and you could spend a fraction of the money that you're spending down at the other number 1 in landscape to fix that area right there, and a fraction of the money that you're going to spend on excavation and cart path too. So
there's also room behind the green on 2 too.
You got it.
This side
Right.
of the cart path
Right.
as well.
Right. And technically, you own the right side of that tee box, right?
No, actually, on the right side.
Yes, and you've cleared that area. And it'd be very easy to make a path on the right side of the tees that connects with the path on the left side of the tees and move forward with that. And then you've got a very similar entrance to Turtle and welcome to Turtle with that open field. You look over the water at the finishing green and you tee off on the first green. You've got the retaining wall with the lettering. And I don't know, I just think it would flow a lot better over there to do that. All right.
But par 5's all on one course. What?
You want to go back to number 11?
Par 5's over to the...
Let's go back to... Were we finished with 8? Do you have any suggestions on the height of number 8? Is 7'9" good? We make the driving range the largest, and then we enlarge the Deer Run and the Turtle Run and shrink Sun and Lake.
Yeah, the same old MO we used on the others. I would think you should carry that.
We'll do that.
I would think.
I agree with that.
And that should be plenty high enough.
Yeah, it's 8 feet high. That's plenty.
Okay, he went through number 9 pretty well with you, removing all of that landscaping in that island right there. So you've got a beautiful view of the golf course.
Excuse me, where exactly is number 8 going to be placed?
Oh.
Right there by the snack shack.
Right in that island. Right.
You have 2, let's see, do we show a...
I think
didn't show in a...
Is it in front of the snack shack?
It's in front of the snack shack.
Green and number 1.
It's in that V?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I just want to double check. Thanks.
And that's exteriorly illuminated.
Okay.
Number 9, you've got the 9 in the 1 hole, so that will be visible. Now, all the T signs are made out of aluminum. And I think Terry covered the tin with the coquina. And then there's the option. We gave you an option on that if you didn't like that idea of the coquina wall for 10B.
I like the band better.
Yeah. Especially when you got to keep those 2 signs.
Yeah. That'd be too many signs.
A couple of us like
we can't hear you.
First option.
First option.
When you cross that Sun and Lake Boulevard and you pull in, you've got 3 or 4 signs visible right there in front of you that quick. So.
Yeah, I think the band sign is better.
Number 11.
Okay,
what
good.
is that? That's
It's a nice, clean, classy look.
Why don't we just get rid of it? We don't need it.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
What do we need that one for?
Well, that's why we're here to discuss it. That's a fair question.
Yeah, ask her. Ask her why we need it. He's questioning why number 11, why we even need that sign, period.
11 and 12?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the 2 existing signs.
They're existing. We would be on number 11, I believe it is the north side, is the larger sign?
Yeah.
That would be cut down. Well, I mean, it's a nice entrance, and you've got the signs existing.
Here, they're already there.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a need.
It's the one right there.
And here, yeah.
There's two.
No.
There's two of them.
One in the south, one in the north.
At east.
Yeah.
There's one here and one here.
Yeah, he's questioning why we need them at all. You're already in the community. That's really what he's questioning.
Right? We were just offering what's there. If you don't want
Well, I
to
mean,
we can dip them.
yeah, I mean, well, this one we don't even need.
Do you think?
As you come around that sidewalk, you're going to have one right there with that band, right?
Right.
You're going to have that band there, and you're going to have one right here at just at the end of the...
So the idea is these are golf cart traffic, and these are
Community.
signs. Right.
Yeah, but you're already into the community.
Okay.
So what do you...
Well, we've had those signs for 40 years in that place traditionally.
Right.
Yeah.
So the issue is whether or not to clean them up, cut them down, and keep them, or remove them. And I don't think, well, okay, that's why we're discussing this.
We're giving you options.
Yeah.
It can be easily demoed, but we thought an option to keep it.
At the stop sign,
Well, it's entirely different sign. That's a directional sign.
that's going to be a directional sign, which is going to send you to the community center.
What's the intention on those signs? To just like Dick said, to clean them up and repaint them? Not.
We could, we could simply do that. That would be a real simple fix.
I mean, what's the intention based upon what we're looking at?
Size and cleaning them up and making them match. Just what we
We would paint and patch, cut the one that's large to have them mirror image each other, and we could, to save money and keep the signs, instead of adding the top aluminum piece to the existing concrete wall, we could fabricate flat cutout letters, aluminum letters, paint them, and pin mount them on this wall, the existing concrete wall. Now that would save money and probably make a lot of people happy leaving that.
Well, I think they should all look the same, in my opinion. Either get rid of them or make them all the same.
And right now, you've got one that's 40 foot wide and one that's...
I understand that, but design-wise, I think for consistency, we should have them all the same.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Location 13 is mounted on the fence, guiding the golf carts. And then we take a ride down to Turtle Run to the golf course, and on the golf cart path we have Turtle Run, and then we have another Turtle Run that tells them to turn across the street. And then we go to number 15. And I think it's decided everybody likes the wall. If you like it on one, you're going to like it on the other. So, okay, got that one.
So you're showing it on number 3 right now, right? Am I looking at that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's a way to get... If we're not going to change the whole numbers, you can still do that. But it just makes sense that if it's one on the other course, that it be one on that course, too, and it be the entrance to that course.
Yeah.
Now...
And like I said, create the staging area at the right of the tee, which you own, or at the top of the tee, which there's plenty of space for.
You have a lot of decisions to make. This sounds like you've already talked about this one, and this would make the perfect sense and timing if you're going to do it, for number one.
I guess the struggle is the decision was already made once, and now we got to go back and look at it again. So that's the problem.
I can't remember why we did
that. Was informal, David.
Maybe you didn't have a signage and landscape program.
Okay, Columbus Road.
Okay, number 16 is on Columbus, turning on to Bonnie.
Okay, all right.
And then number 17, we gave you the option of holes 10 and 1 or 10 and 17.
You change 1 and 3 now. There's a minimal amount of work that needs to be done down there at Bonnie. You keep it the same and want the nice welcome sign down there at Bonnie, you need to pour the separate path that goes to 1, because there's a very confusing area right there. And then put your signages and landscape the inside of the V that it creates.
I'm not sure what you have in mind here in this number 17 location on Bonnie. I don't, the one with the...
Let's go to the aerial on that then. That's the easier way to do it.
I don't think so. I don't know. They may be at the end.
They're on the right page there. So we're coming in off Bonnie right now.
We're getting to take the mic with you.
All right, you hold it for me then. You come in off Bonnie here. Where are we going?
Okay.
Right. This needs to go to 1. If this is 1, then we need to come here. And then we create that V that's there. We can put our nice welcome sign. We can direct the traffic accordingly. If we move the T's, there's no need to do all of that. Or exchange them. So.
Just keep pushing.
I think you have a condensed amount of landscape and signage at your second roundabout, right? Yeah. And we're going to spend this money down here where a limited amount of people can enjoy it. How many houses are on Bonnie? 7 houses, 6 houses? You know, everyone that goes down Columbus will see the other one, right? And enjoy the money that's being spent. This is all spent back in the back of a scrub that nobody sees. And you got to drive 4.5 minutes on a golf cart to get to. So.
Okay.
All right.
Now we go through and go through the different directionals in the same existing places where they are now. We changed the verbiage to community center and pool and fitness center.
Very simple. It's number 18.
Number 23.
Wait, if you
what happened to 20?
At the insert up in the upper right-hand corner on 20, that's you call it foam board? What do you call it?
It's foam. Yeah, it's a condensed urethane foam.
So you get an idea of what that looks like.
It's sign foam.
Sign foam, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to redo the pillar itself?
No.
Or is that just... Because it looks like it's aluminum, but it's not.
No, it's concrete.
All right. Okay.
Just making a match, right?
I mean, we can paint it.
No, I'm just asking. That's all.
We can do whatever you want us to do.
Okay. 21. Okay.
Number 23 on Artego and Schumacher. That's a single-faced sign. It's non-illuminated. It's exteriorly illuminated in the evening, and those are flat cutout letters, flat cutout aluminum, pin-mounted. And we added a sign number 24, that's right before you get to the intersection of Ortego and Orion. So it welcomes you to the Sun and Lake Center.
You know, I've always had a problem with that one because that's all local traffic. I don't see putting this new sign is 20-foot sign by 8.5 foot tall.
Well,
is right there. I don't. That's really not an entrance to Sun and Lake. I mean, it's local traffic. I don't know of anybody that comes in that way going to Sun and Lake. It's just.
I mean, I
wouldn't want to burn a bunch of money putting it in there. Yeah, you go to and from home that way. I know it, but you know where you're going. You're not looking for anything.
I'm just raising my hand.
Yeah, well, you go in and out of there from the back way, and so do I. But I would.
This one.
It's almost like the sign we've got there now is adequate, rather than putting a monument up there that only local traffic is going to look at.
An option would be if we took sign 24 and replaced it with sign 23. And you have a small directory.
Straight ahead.
Okay. What would you suggest? Not have a sign at all? I'm not sure.
No, I said I think what we've got there is probably adequate as far as size and I mean just rework that sign rather than put a 20-foot long.
Rework the sign though.
Yeah, rework the existing sign. Yeah, we probably need a sign there, but
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars and putting a big sign in there without just for local traffic.
How about if we price this one out separately?
That'd be good.
Yeah. Turn off the sheet right there.
Ortega's true.
Yeah,
and the gravel starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you turn into something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, leave. I thought you were just saying get rid of the sign, but you want to leave that. Just rework, make it look like that.
I don't have a problem.
No, neither.
I think they just want to keep that sign.
Done with option one?
We're done.
Okay.
Can we put that on The landscaping pretty much stays the same in everything, which can be tailored. We can add, we can omit, just like we're doing with the signage portion of this.
Okay, let me ask you a question. When you're putting together a guesstimate for the cost of this thing, let us know the differential between making number one, number three, number one versus the others. That's going to make a lot of difference, I think, in making a decision.
It was a lot of work to price out 75 signs without knowing which direction you were going to go into.
Parameters before we just work on pricing every single thing.
Right.
So.
Okay.
You want to explain then the difference basically between options 1 and 2?
Well, the style of the sign, for one. This has pillars. It's all aluminum also, except for the cabinets, the illuminated cabinets. It also is the reverse channel letter. 1 and 2 are both reverse channel letters, the same as option 1, and option 3 will be the same.
Well,
so they'll all have.
If you go to sign 4, and you take option 1 and look at it next to option 2 and look at it, the lettering in the message in option 2, I'm not saying the style necessarily, but the lettering is much easier to read, and probably from
sign 4.
Yeah, sign 4 on both issues, both options.
Okay.
You reduce Sun and Lake at the top, which I don't see as a problem. I'm not sure I like the pillars, but the lettering is to me, is very impressive. It's better. You see, bolder. You see, I like that. As far as
you like the bolder lettering?
Well, yeah, because then the driver who's coming in can pick up on it quicker and absorb it. I think a little bit better than you could. For example,
you like this better? Yeah, it's cleaner.
It's cleaner.
Which one?
The design itself.
Yeah, I like the design better, but I like this lettering is much better.
Just wondering that letters are so close together, if they almost would start.
We can thin or thicken most any type of font.
Yeah, I think our opinion just at a first glance is we like the design option 1 over option 2, but the boldness of the lettering in option 2 looks a little better.
I think when you move that to sign 1, though, the boldness is going to have to get smaller. It's going to be up and
I don't know why. It'd be the same. Talking about the same dimensions.
If you like the font from 2, you can put it on 1 and we'll adjust it to make it aesthetically pleasing.
What else in option 2 should we be looking at?
Hold on 1 second.
While you're making notes, it's technically the racket club as opposed to tennis and pickleball. I like racket club.
Okay. So racket club replaces tennis and pickle. Okay.
Be a good idea there.
Okay. Let's see.
Everything else is the same, other than just the design.
Yeah, I haven't changed any of the sign.
The directories on this sign are squared off at the bottom. The other has a little wave to it. I don't know if you like one look better than the other.
Well, we probably need to wait to get some input from the other people to see it. But, at first glance, we're thinking, we like the design on option 1, but the lettering in option 2. But
option 1 will be less expensive. Less expensive.
Option 2 would be?
Option 1.
Okay. Yeah. As far as the construction of the sign.
Fabrication, the structure, there aren't a lot of pillars. It's a lot of clean lines.
Dirt catchers. You call them dirt catchers. Dirt catchers.
Yes.
You can put your birdhouses on top of that. So the sign 19?
See how clean that, or even look at sign 24. You can see how clean that is.
Where are you on sign 24?
Well, 19 and 24.
You're talking about the
directional sign.
You're talking about the lettering itself.
The lettering, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Very clean.
Okay.
20.
Actually, I like option 1's lettering better.
All right.
It's bolder, but I like the lettering on it.
Do you like the Sun and Lake lettering on option 2 versus the Sun and Lake lettering on option 1? But you like the design of option 1? Is that what I'm hearing?
Now I'm talking about the message.
You're just talking about, the directions.
Yeah, it's bolder, and I think this cleaner, a little bit cleaner design. More like print typewritten or something like that.
Now, the golf ball has been changed on option 2 versus option 1.
What's that number?
Dick, look up how much bigger this is compared to that.
Probably be, well, here we go.
See, it did have to. Yeah, one's white and one's got a little yellow.
Well, it's the,
Yeah.
the shadowing is on the bottom.
Option 2, Sun and Lake are smaller.
Yeah.
You got more base here.
Let's see, let me look at 23.
I noticed on 2 that the base is higher than it is on 1, the base of the sign, the main sign.
Ah.
Are we going to have trouble with shrubberies growing up, covering up our message in years down the road?
We can make it higher.
I'm just asking.
It'll be a maintenance.
Not saying to change anything.
When we're going to have to give you some sort of maintenance scope, and certain plants are going to have to be maintained at certain heights.
Okay.
So,
Are both signs exactly the same height overall?
Pretty
I didn't
close.
look at it.
I think number,
Yeah.
5 foot.
no, number 1 is 17 high. The other was 12.
because of your pillars.
Yeah, your pillars are.
Pillows are 5 foot high, and the other ones are 6'6".
About
15. Copy area is 10 feet.
See, in option 1, they're 6'6" high. In option 2, they're.
Which sign you looking at?
You're looking at 1?
19.
Oh, I was just
Oh,
looking
right.
at the main sign.
And they're only 5 foot high.
I'm more concerned about the message area than the sign itself.
What, the big ones?
Yeah, the one in front, I was just... These are drawn to scale, right? Okay, we'll figure it out later. All right.
North entrance. 4 foot high.
Are we done with 2?
That's up to you.
I mean, is that really the only differences? Is the color of the golf ball and the design of the sign?
Right.
Well,
Pretty much everything else is the same?
the directionals will all. The tees are the same.
Yeah.
The entrances to the golf course, the wall is the same.
Yeah.
Now, location 8, all of the design flavor that as you come in to the Sun and Lake, sign 1, sign 2 are going to carry through the whole.
Yeah.
But like sign 8 will be similar to 1 and 2. And then location 7, there's a mistake on that one. The tile at the bottom is really supposed to be option number 3. So just omit the tile when you look at that one.
Which one was that?
7.
Oh. What about the tile now? It's not supposed to be...
That's option 3.
Oh, option 3. Okay.
A mistake.
What boards are you planning to leave? Is there enough boards that somebody can just walk by and see the option 1, 2, and 3 and some of the signs?
We did sign 1, 2, and 3 on all 3 options. Now, and I would suggest leaving several books out so people can go through them. And then put a book out, sheet out, if somebody wants to make notes, for each one. Somebody may like the directory on one. Somebody may like the design on number 2. But, it
Mike, I
just
think
may vary.
we need to find a place in the clubhouse because that's where all the traffic is. And
Mr. Ford has agreed to do whatever we need.
okay, put it in a place that even somebody who's not aware it's there will be once they walk into the clubhouse.
Put it in the foyer. Take the couch out of there or something.
You're welcome to.
All right.
We're good?
So.
Okay, option 3?
Yeah.
All right, let me just, so it's got a little bit more frou-frou to it.
So this is the Cadillac here?
This is the Cadillac.
Ooh. I can see that's a maintenance problem already.
And he gave you on sign number 1, he gave you an aerial view of the V-shaped sign, and the lattice work at the top is aluminum molding.
Okay.
And added the aluminum tiles. There's more embellishment on the columns. Columns and tiles are pretty much. Now the directories change on this one.
On number 1, it looks like that banding that goes around Sun and Lake on top there is illuminated. Is that just a reflection, or it's kind of like yellow looking?
No, that is illuminated.
Okay.
It's a cove, and it has LED lighting in it, which casts out at night.
Boy, that really stands out.
I believe all of those were illuminated like that.
Really? Mm-hmm. I didn't pay any attention. No, it's not on 1. No, I'm talking about this right here, this part right here.
Oh, yeah.
You're thinking this part.
Put 1, different design.
I was talking about this. This part of this edging right here.
Mm-hmm.
On the night.
I see that here. Oh,
look on 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that lit or is it?
It's illuminated. And if you like that look, that cove lighting to illuminate at night, and you like number 1, we could do that at the top of the top of the sign and on either side around.
All right. It really brings the focus to the sun and light, don't it? This right here just makes that sign pop.
What's he talking about? This band right there. Put that band on option 1.
Yeah, she said, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So when you do your pricing, are you going to price Turtle Run both ways? Like changing number 3 and then not changing it? Okay. I can't remember why I decided not to do it. All right.
We decided because
So are we looking at
traffic.
2 weeks to give everybody an opportunity to look at?
How long did it take you to price it out?
You want us to price out all 3 options?
No. Once we decide what we want, then how long does it take you to price it out?
Okay, we have one meeting in March.
Yeah.
That's on the 13th. That's when we thought you would discuss options and
then
say,
here's what we want.
We choose, A, B, and C. And then she can give you an idea of what the pricing is.
Okay. So our first meeting in April, we would expect her to make a presentation.
That would give you almost 30 days.
And what are you wanting us to do in March?
Well, we're going to have another meeting, and we'll try to condense this down so we give you a direction in terms of where we want to go.
Okay.
And then you'll have from the March meeting till the April meeting to come back with your proposals.
Okay.
Okay, now
I'm sure we'll do that.
All they're doing at this point in time is plans and specs. You'll actually go to bid on the final product. You may not need pricing except in a general stand.
Budgetary.
Yeah.
We're going to need some cost to make a decision. I mean, if option A is, say, 150,000, and option B is 200,000, it's a big difference.
I said only in a general terms. Don't look for a specific price is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Does that work?
All righty. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
From March until then, do we need to have a meeting to talk about the scope and some of that demolition and whatnot?
Why don't we talk about that?
Okay.
You and I can do that.
So I will wait to hear from Mike.
Yes.
Is that how that will work?
Do you need her on the 13th?
I don't think so. Well,
no.
I don't think so.
Just not until we make our decision.
I'll keep you in the loop.
So possibly March 13th, is that what you're thinking?
That's our next meeting.
I think what they're saying is they want to come and mull it over and say, we like options A, B, and C.
Okay.
And then we'll convey that back to you and say this is what they choose. And then maybe Terry can be at the meeting.
I was going to you live in Avon Park, don't you? Yeah, so that would be close.
Yep.
Have Terry be here. All righty. Quicker than I expected.
Oh, good.
I don't think we need the panels on the back wall, do we? I don't think we need to go into that level of detail.
This?
No, the back wall.
It'd be nice to keep that S, I think. If we can.
You want the reverse? You mean to keep it for? You can. Yes, you can.
Just
to display
show.
it. Sure.
Yeah.
It's hard. That's a reverse channel letter.
Yeah, I think that'd be nice. Wish my name was Smith right now, but it's not.
We'll get a real proposal over.
Okay.
We're going to kind of pack some stuff up, so we will hopefully
Clearly want the site map too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Valerie, if you would, leave me the extra copies you don't need.
If we had a rough cost on one, 2 and 3 are a little bit more expensive, right?
I'm feeling that we're going to go back and forth on this because we'll make decisions, they'll cost them out, we're not happy with it, and
Sure.
we have to redo it. So I think
Well,
it's a better procedure than that.
I don't think so.
It is what it is.
Yeah, we'll get through it. Okay, next on the action agenda is a public works site plan presentation. 3 hours ahead of schedule.
Big money. Big money.
Yeah, this is going to be
I'll try to go through it pretty briefly so we can save some time, maybe get out before lunch here today, right? Okay, go ahead if you want to. Yeah, they do have copies as well. So. All right, Gator Howerton for the record, so you have it now. We're typing up. You don't recognize my voice. Last month I had come to you. We had a project we were discussing doing out there for the Public Works and the golf maintenance area, the maintenance yard. I'll briefly go through some of the problems that we had for anyone who's new in the audience that didn't see that last month. But we have the flooding issues that we have out there. We have a lot of shell area. You can go to the next slide. We'll go through them quick, Tanya. We have, in front of all the barns, we have great big holes that gets filled up with water. Water doesn't go anywhere, sits there for a long time. You can go to the next slide. Another example of it is just the whole yard just pretty much turns into a mud mess. You can go on through them. We've seen this. We also have the golf operations. Right now their office is working out of a little trailer. It's just a mobile, not even a mobile home. It's just that's a portable trailer for a temporary office for doing construction for 90 days to 120 days. This isn't for something where he's been housed in there for several years. Next slide. That's what our current maintenance facility pretty much consists of, is an old building that's falling down, falling apart. You can go to the next slide. It's very small. There's no room in there to get any large equipment. All he can work on is small mowers in there. Next slide. You can see the roof on it was pretty much falling apart and decaying. It's about to come down on its own if we don't go ahead and tear it down. We have our existing gas and diesel tanks are right next to our water plant, right next to our wells and our water tanks. Not a very good situation. Wouldn't even be allowed to do that today if we were to try to come in and do that. This is existing the maintenance and storage barn that George Lloyd and his crew use. It's not very big. The clearance on it's not very high. We can't get a lot of the equipment in there that we need to get in there. And even when we do get it in there, there's not much room to work on anything. It's not in great shape. Again, also we have water issues standing in front of it. The building was not constructed at an elevation very high to where we can get good drainage away from this building. It was just put on the existing ground at the time. In fact, I think it was even lower than existing ground. They scraped all the dirt, scraped all the grass and stuff off, and then they must have just poured the concrete right there. It's lower than I think the ground around it. Here's where the golf course equipment is housed in this other pole barn, and you can see on that one, these are just fairly small tractors and mowers that they use out there, but they barely clear the edges in there to get those stored in that building as well. You can go to the next slide. One other thing that we've noticed looking at them, the base of the beams, most of the beams on those poles are starting to deteriorate. They've already kind of pretty much hit their lifespan. The roof itself has several holes in it. The metal's been flexing and starting to tear apart. The wood underneath the metal is rotting out. Can't tell you just how long that building would last in a good hurricane. It may not last at all. So we could lose that building. I mean, that's just a brief summary on that one. We're also trying to store all the chemicals in just kind of a little shed kind of corner of that building. He's stacked them in there as much as best he can. You can go to the next one. I mean, they do have some nice storage shelves in there, but still, it's an open air. It's just not very well, not an ideal situation for us, for the guys to work in. Here again, back is the Public Works building where they're trying to store their equipment. They're lucky they can squeeze in one or two tractors in there, but that's about as much as they can get. Go to the next one. Same here. Only the ones with the low cabs on them will fit, and the whole machine will not even fit underneath it. We have several machines that we have to park outside and are left out in the weather. And we've got a lot of nice equipment, but we can't store them underneath anything in bad weather. I can't keep it out of the rain, mud. One option that we looked at was also trying to raise those buildings up by pouring a concrete just a cap on the slab to try to raise the slab up so I could effectively raise the site by just adding concrete to it. But one thing we have would go in and we'd take out all these doors. These are sliding doors that really don't work very well anyway, but it would conflict with all of that. Also, we don't have the clearance space. On the back side of that building, the only tractor he can get in there is this little small tractor that they use. That's the only one that'll fit underneath the eave. The rest of them, nothing else will fit. Even the pickups won't fit underneath it. The site plan that I had at the time was trying to work with what we had using those buildings that were there, and we were going to add a new building over there between the bulk storage yard and the golf course in the area where the golf office is at now. and we were going to try to move the fueling station, get it away from the wells and away from the water plant, come up with a new chemical storage, a wash facility, and a fuel facility. We were going to try to position that as far away as we could. This was the best layout that I could come up with a very limited budget and trying to make it work, but it just still wasn't really working very well. And we go to the next slide. Then we go to the next one. We're going to try to keep those existing barns at the time. This is, I guess, the picture of what that wash facility and the fuel tanks and some of the chemical storage would look somewhat like. Would look a lot like this. They're just kind of a basic building. You go to the next. This was the building that we were proposing at the time to try to work in there to do. This is a similar building a building that was built out at the Sebring Airport recently. It was a 60 by 70. It would also have some office space in there for the golf and for public works to use in there, and also have a break room, have some bathrooms, some of those kind of facilities in there. Basically, we had a budget they were trying to keep it within. We were having a hard time keeping within the already allowed budget. When you also asked me how much would something like this cost to do it right, to try to do it. To go back in there and add in the piping to try to drain that site, to add in other things you're going to want, such as a net across the facility to try to stop golf balls from coming in. We get a barrage of golf balls tearing up equipment quite often in there. Adding in a landscaping, adding in all the other odd items and whatnot. If I were to say that's what the site you want to do that, you need to allow my budget that I kind of came up with, my expected budget for that would be somewhere in the area of about $900,000 to do that kind of facility. That's patching up your existing facility and putting in I won't call it a smaller building, a 4,200 square foot building that has 2 bays in it for your maintenance guys to be able to and he can get equipment in there. It will be much improved over what he has right now. But that may not be the ideal situation. In discussions that we had there, we asked me to come back with what did I propose, what would be the best scenario, what do we need out there? Well, so I went back to the drawing board, started over again completely, and go to the next slide. Well, this was actually one other layout that I'm trying to work with, trying to make the site work, but let me go to the next one. All right, this is where I come up with, going back to the drawing board, wiping everything but the water plant out, and say if we had a blank piece of ground right there and we want to put in a maintenance facility, what should we put in there? This is my idea of what I would put in there if it were me. All right, the building that I used, I modeled this building off of the City of Avon Park's maintenance building out there by the college. It is a 170 foot long by 100 foot wide building. So 17,000 square feet, much larger than what we were proposing before. It would include enough area that it's bigger than the 2 pole barns that you have now and your maintenance barn in there. You could fit all that in there, so you'd be able to store all your equipment inside a building. You'd be able to roll the doors down. It'd be inside storage during storms or whatnot. They are out of the weather. You can work on them. If they break down, the guys can bring them in there and they can work on all the equipment. Yes,
Gator, just matter of clarification. The budget that you had that shows the 909 with contingency, what you're proposing is based on those costs?
This is another budget. This will be a little bit larger than that one.
You have that?
Yes, sir. I have it. We're going to get to it. I'll just explain to you what we have here, and then I know that's going to be the most talked about slide. This one, we're still using the same chemical wash fuel area. We have a little bit larger. We have a 100 by 30 foot staff office and storage space. You'd have enough room in there. They could have like a meeting, an area where they could have staff meetings. They could get together, discuss what's going on at the golf course. They could have a project boards. They could have a lot of things in there in this building. We have plenty of room for that. We can finish it out. This is an ideal situation, and they would have at least 4 or 5 bays that you could pull through that would be 100 feet wide, so you could stack your equipment in there. Public Works could have a section. Golf area could have a section. We would have several areas in there, and then the maintenance gentleman, he would have an area as well. I also included just an outside tractor barn for storing things like maybe the mower deck or the mower, the bush hogs that are not connected to the tractors. Some of the things that don't have to be inside, but we do want to keep them covered because they are very valuable. You spend a lot of money on these things. That equipment is very expensive, and when you live it out in the weather, it's prone to rusting and just deteriorating. So I did show a tractor barn on here, a 60 by, I think it was a 60 by 70, 60 by 40, I believe it was, tractor barn on there as well. I was going to leave and move the storage bins to get them over to the sides of the site, and we could also put our dumpster in there. We could leave all of our trimming storage. We can kind of stack some of that in there to try to keep that down to a little bit of a minimal area, but still have plenty of room for your bulk storage of your gravel, sand, things like that you need. And I was going to leave this area, this gray area, as kind of a gravel area for large equipment turning, twisting and turning, working such as that, but still be able to drain it out. I have catch basins and drainage and all in there. I included a settling pond so that we can, all the area that comes off of this could go into a settling pond area, and the water then could be, it's treated, it's kind of a pre-treatment, and let all the sediments and stuff settle out before it flows out, goes across the street and goes into the lake across the street.
Tell us what you did with the entire site.
Okay, right. And the entire site is raised up. I did raise up the building a couple of feet, so therefore we're going to be adding some fill in here. It really wasn't a tremendous amount, because by the time I come off the building and then I start sloping everything else down to try to match up with what's there, there wasn't a tremendous amount of fill. Most of it was the base and sub-base.
Is that under the line item earthwork?
Yes, sir. Well, it's under the fill and under some part of the earthwork. It's kind of a combination for the whole site. Okay, we can go to the next slide. That's an example of the Avon Parks building that they have. I mean, that's a picture of it there. It was hard even for me to get the whole building in one frame from the camera without the fence and all in the way. But it's a tall building, so you're able to get your backhoes and get all your trucks. You don't have to worry about height restrictions, stuff coming in. You can fit an actual dump truck inside there if you need to. If we ever get a vac truck, get things like that, we would have enough room. You could store it inside this building to keep it protected and keep it safe, be able to work on it, such as that. Also, it gives you enough room to have storage over top of your office area. You can double the use of that space by having storage for a lot of your parts, tools, and stuff like that on the second story inside the building. We can go to the next one. Just another picture from the side of it. And another one there of it. Most of us have seen it, I'm sure. Here's just a picture of what it looks like on top of an aerial, where it would fit. For this layout, the most ideal, I wanted to get the driveway away from the driving range so that we're not a target every time you're driving in and out of that thing. Also wanted to line it up, since we're over here in this area, wanted to line it up with the street just from a traffic aspect. We do have trucks coming in and out of here, semis and whatnot. So I wanted to drive it up so we don't have a jog intersection in there. That's just a transportation and engineering desire, if we can at all possible do that. It lines up. And so if we can acquire these lots, which I have in there, land acquisition cost in here as well on the budget, which is a variable. It could vary, but I have that included in there. And but we're going to try to leave as much of the surrounding area as we could in native vegetation as a buffer. So hopefully we wouldn't even see this from the road.
Lots we don't own.
Right, okay. And to point out, the lots that we currently do not own are the two lots that I'm primarily using naturally, is just the way that it worked out. But now I can move some of this stuff around if we have to, but these two lots where the pond and the driveway are at are the two that we do not own yet.
Where do we stand on that, Mike?
One of them is we're going through a foreclosure action, but you've got about $20,000 plus in bonds that are outstanding. And the third option, and the other property is owned by an individual out of South Florida who owes about $6,000, and he wants $35,000, which is what he paid for it.
All right. We go to the next slide.
That's where the $60,000 land acquisition number came from.
Gator?
Yes, sir.
Avon Park, that you're comparing You've got the same size building proposed here on option 2 or the second proposal as Avon Park. Avon Park's got a lot more equipment than what we do. Do they not? I mean, don't they have a lot of big...
I think we probably actually have more equipment. We have more numbers of equipment. Now, a lot of ours are maybe smaller because they're dealing with a more spread out area, but so they have to truck most of their equipment around.
About the only difference is they have a garbage operation that we don't have, but we have a golf operation that they don't have. So when you actually look at the space the vehicles take up, we probably occupy more space than they do.
Well, I'm looking at $700,000 differential between one building and the other. That's where the majority of the cost is.
It is. It's a big number.
That's a big number.
Right. That's a big number. That's
probably the first option's not adequate, but the second one might be an overkill. It's the only reason I.
Yeah. Oh, we can scale it back. I mean, that's nothing set in stone. So
that's a big number. I mean, the second option, it's an enormously big number.
We're not looking for a decision today, and here's part of our thinking is this was a lot of information to absorb, so we wanted to give it to you and let you have time to think about it. Also, you'll have some unknowns that hopefully will be answered at the next meeting. You don't know what the price of your golf renovations are going to be. You don't know what the price of your tennis renovations are going to be today. But we should have bids in and for you to consider, so you can not only look at some signage options and some of the costing there, but you can look at maybe give us some direction on what you want to do here, as well as know what the unknowns are with golf and tennis.
Are you going to revisit the tennis renovation later in the agenda?
We're just out to bid.
Well, I want to discuss that at the proper time, not now. Gator, just put everything in context. When you first made the presentation, we had a budget of, $350,000 for this project, right?
I don't have the number right offhand exactly. Well, it was right about that area.
Mike has it here, but that's what we had. So that's what's in the bank now for that.
Right.
This first table that goes to $909,000 with contingency.
Right.
Now, how did that come about based on your...
That's
I got the impression your first presentation, you were trying to fit everything into what money we had to work with, and we said, no, go ahead and let's see what really needs to be done. So so what is this second table that goes to 800 and some, 900,000 with contingency?
Right. Okay, well, basically... went back to work as soon as we left the last meeting. I went back to work on this current site, on the site plan that I'm showing right now, and that building could be scaled down. I mean, it doesn't hurt the site plan at all to do that. But basically, I went to work on that site plan. Now, I know what the biggest question is going to be: how much is it going to cost? How much is something like this going to cost? So I was working on cost and upbidding all that the whole time. Working in there, land acquisition. Working in there, we're going to have to do landscaping, the net for the golf balls on the driving range. Just several things in there that I knew it's going to be common to both sites that may not have been really in that last budget as well. So I wanted to compare apples and apples. I wanted to try to keep them as close as I could. To do the site work for either site really isn't much different to do either site. And that's really where I was wanting to show you is that the cost on the site work doesn't change much. Most of the difference in cost is in the building itself. And so what I'm kind of showing you is that, and when we haven't got the last slide, but that last one, but I know you have it there as well. On the other proposed budget is we're taking out all the buildings that are there and putting in one new one. That's the difference in the cost, but the site work isn't much different. So if you're going to spend the money on the site, my recommendation is go ahead and put a new building up as well, and you're covered for 20, 30, 50 years.
Okay, but when your original presentation, you didn't have the raising of the site in that.
That's correct. Right. We're not raising the site, and as you detected in my voice, I didn't intend to do that, but you wisely picked it up that I was hesitant about the site plan that I was able to come up with about draining it. I just really wasn't comfortable with that site plan.
So I guess trying to again put it where it's understandable. We were dealing with $350,000. That was unrealistic, right? In terms of what we needed.
It was
basically a building paving on the existing site and the wash rack. Well, that's doing it in-house. The numbers we're showing you now is we're contracting out everything.
Yeah, that's a big difference as well, too. Yes, that did affect the cost as far as some of that. Because we were trying with the 350 or 400 thereabouts budget that we were trying to comply with. We're trying to get bare bones as cheap as possibly get something done. What could we do? And I was kind of frustrated, pulling my hair out, going, for the money that's given, I can't get you what you want. Is where I was at with Mr. Wright and Mr. Griffin as well. They're both telling me, giving me, you got $50,000 to pave it. That's going to cost more than, and I just can't do it.
As Dave pointed out, the big difference in every one of these line items goes back to that building.
Right.
And can you shed some more light in terms of what is reasonable, what is feasible, what is desirable? I guess what can give us the pros and cons of the two sizes again?
Okay. Well, again, the building can be changed very easily on the size-wise. That's like the maximum. I pretty much left a shell there. We could cut that in half if we want to for now and still leave it where we could build on later if we want to. These steel buildings are very easy to do that kind of work on. The steel building itself, for the concrete, for the steel, the building, the material, and for the erection service, to have the shell put up is about $20 per square foot.
Okay, but that doesn't include electrical or...
That does not include the electrical. That's what I was getting at. Yeah, it doesn't include the electrical. Doesn't include any other kind of finished work. Even your roll-up doors, they come separate. Your windows and stuff like that, if there are any in there, they wouldn't come in there. I mean, that's just for the shell. So to get your shell, you're looking at about $20 a square foot. It's not bad. That's a pretty good price for what you're getting for these type of uses, industrial type applications. Very good. We all wish we had a good. I've got a 1,500 square foot one at my house, just for a workshop and barn and all that. Myself, I've done the exact same thing. So that's where we, start out with about 20. Now I've padded that number quite well, and that number is probably overinflated. Really, the number that I put in there, which was the $765,000 on the building for $45 a square foot. That's to finish out the office space inside, to run electrical in there, to handle all your welding, lighting, all the electrical needs that you would need in an industrial type shop like this. We'd also have cost in there for a lift, which really wasn't in our other budget that we had previously, to do a lot of these kind of equipment, mechanical equipment that you're going to need to outfit the whole building. So the whole building, it would only be about $350,000 for the building shell itself, but then the rest of it that I have in there, about $400,000 worth, is finishing out inside. That number could be trimmed easily.
Well, with this building 60 by 70, the 189,000 building, would that meet our short-term needs?
Short-term, yes, sir. I think it would be a much improvement over what you have now. It would definitely give them somewhere to work. Inside, out of the weather. They can work on equipment. You can get equipment in it, but it wouldn't be storing anything. You would only be able to just work on one machine at a time, is what it would amount to. So you would have two bays in that building. That building would have two drive-through bays. One of them would probably have a lift in it, or we may have to put the lift outside. But it would have a lift in there. If you had a lift in there, you wouldn't be able to drive all the way through that building. So you really only have one that you could drive all the way through. So mechanic would only have just that area to work, and it's pretty much a mechanic's building. You could store some things in it. It would also have an office in there. We were going to have offices in there, so Dave Bell, George Lloyd. We have a few. It wouldn't be very many. It'd just be a couple small offices, and then break rooms.
Chemical storage, that type thing.
Right, we're going to have some chemical storage. The chemical storage mostly would be in the chemical building and other things. So we really wouldn't want chemicals in there anymore. Some chemicals we wouldn't want in there because we don't want them to damage the building. But it would get you there for the time being, yes, sir. It would do it, but you would still be looking at sometime in the next 10 years or so wanting to have to do some major renovations on those pole barns, whether it be totally replace them or something. You'd be wanting to do that, I feel.
You're saying this building we could add on to And that would be a given. We wouldn't have a problem with that.
Right. It's just a matter of laying out the site so that you could do it, and that. But the building structural wise, that's easy to do. It's easy to add on to them.
Do you have a particular recommendation?
It depends on the amount of budget that you have available. Is really where it comes down to.
You have a particular recommendation regarding the functional aspects of the project,
right?
Particularly in terms of this building.
Well, this would be an ideal situation. I'll tell you, that's an ideal situation.
That's the big one. But how about
the big for the big one?
Smaller version adequately meet our needs?
Right. We could even cut a lot of the building. We could almost cut it in half if you wanted to. We could cut it down, and that cuts down, and it would meet your needs as well. You can the smaller one, the 4200, that would be, I'd say, probably your minimum, your bare minimum that you need to get by. They've been getting by with what they have now, so it's kind of hard to say what do you have to have. Well, they have been getting by with almost nothing. Working under tent.
Well, let's go back again. I'm trying to get this really fixed. This building is 60 by 70, which is in the lesser budget. Right. You're saying that barely meets our needs?
Yes, sir. Whenever he was talking about doing...
The other version is, I guess, a Cadillac version, right?
Right. That would be more towards the Cadillac side.
Are we headed towards something in between, or what?
Yeah. Certainly.
If we went to the 100-foot building and then dropped the 170 down to 100-foot, the 70-foot could be added basically at any time at a pretty reduced cost. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, sir.
And if you use your cost per square foot of 45, that'd make that 450 instead of 765.
Right.
300,000 out of it at least.
Right, exactly. And it's easy to do at this point. We have not done any kind of work on the building itself, on any kind of design work or anything. This is all, nothing is set in stone on this. So yeah, we could easily do that.
That size of building be way more than adequate for now.
It would be pretty good for now. I would want to increase the pole barn size slightly, because you're not going to be able to house all the mowers, the golf course mowers and the public works mowers and equipment and all that in there, possibly, but it would at least it would give the mechanic a much greater area to work in. It would be able to get most of your equipment inside and out of the weather. And
what are you talking about, pole barn? Tractor barn?
Yeah, what I have there is, I think it's labeled as a tractor barn.
Are you going to keep those or tear them down?
No, that's the new one on this site plan. I'm talking about tearing down with this site plan with the bigger building, the 100-foot wide building.
I'm
tearing down the existing pole barns.
I'm talking about the 4,200 square foot building.
Okay.
You're going to keep the pole barns?
With that layout, we were going to keep the pole barns. We'd have to, because we have nowhere else to put the equipment. Right.
Well, my other thing is, in terms of your layout, the smaller building, you're going to put it on the west side of the lot, and the bigger building, you're going to put it right in the middle. So if you went with the smaller building and wanted to add on later, what would you do?
There's not a whole lot of room to expand that way. You'd have to tear out the existing pole barn in order to do it. Yeah. So that was part of the problem, is the way that things are laid out right now. It just doesn't. There's not a good place to put a new building. We had two different spots two different locations. We were trying to squeeze it in, but the access in and out of it, because you want to try to get large equipment in there, and you got to go through a door that's only 12 foot wide, and so you've got to get your machine, your tractor lined up, and potentially have a trailer behind it. You've got to get lined up before you go through there, so you don't damage the doors. You want to have a good lead in to get straight before you go through there, and so it takes a lot of room.
Are we talking multi-year funding?
I think if you were going to do this, there's so much interrelated. I think you just need to do it all at one time.
So you're saying take the balance out of reserves?
Yes, sir. And let me add one other thing. We looked at other alternative locations. Go to your last slide, Gator.
Okay.
We basically looked at 3 sites where we own real estate. All 3 would require rezoning. If we went to unit, 20?
On the north side?
North side of unit 16. If we did a rezoning there because of the size, we think we would trigger environmental review. And Gator, why don't you talk about the environmental out there?
I don't want to trigger too many things here, but environmentally wise, we are cleared for scrub jays habitat. We had done a lot of that stuff back in the 80s, and we have the habitat set aside for all that. And that clears us from having to do scrub jay evaluations when we're clearing on the other areas that were not set aside. But it did not include sand skink or gopher tortoise. And then they share the same habitat. So when it comes down to clearing those areas, if we had to do an environmental review, there's a good likelihood that sand skinks may show up on that, and would kill that.
We could get it rezoned. The other area we looked at was land we own in Unit 7. Show it where that is.
Right, correct. 6 and 7 are down past Cortez, south of Grenada.
We looked at...
that's a long ways away from...
That's the issue.
Right.
It's a pretty good hike. And the third area we looked at where we have a little bit of land but not quite enough is down by the middle school. We own some property back in there that we could possibly acquire some additional property.
Talking about a lot of distance and back and forth for our machine.
That was the whole point I was going to get at is
residential area.
The three areas where we have additional land all would require rezoning, might trigger environmental, and you're not going to save any money. Plus the logistics of location, you're going to add a fair amount of time for transportation to and from. Man hours.
Well, even if we're settle on, say, a reasonable compromise between the largest and the smallest, we're still talking a requirement of adding almost $1 million to this project. Is that correct?
Yes.
By contracting it out and doing,
what's the savings on or the cost on contracting it out? I don't see anything on that list that we could do internally. Not a whole heck of a lot.
Well, the building, you do have a gentleman on your staff that has a contractor's licensing, very qualified to do the building.
Where is he today?
Yeah, where is he?
Had an obligation with his son at an elementary school. He'll be here shortly.
Right. But he
couldn't move, unfortunately.
Yes, and I told him that was, But
if you go back to your original slide, the 4,000 square foot building, Mr. Griffin actually built as the general contractor at the airport.
And what did he build it for?
The experimental, what did he build it for?
No, I mean price-wise.
He was saying to use around, it was around $40 a square foot is where that come out to be somewhere. But that one was more concentrated on. He had a lot of built-out area. They had meeting rooms, bathrooms, classrooms, and stuff in there.
One wall was a garage door. Yeah. The entire wall came up.
Yeah, the whole backside of that building, the whole side of it on the other side back there is one overhead large door.
Okay, so what else would we do internally?
Wash racks.
Well, the wash racks were in the other building, in that smaller one.
We added some additional money because of contracting it out.
Right.
We'd probably come in around $125,000 to $130,000 if we did it in house. You're talking about 20%, roughly. That's what a contractor.
So I would think. Yeah.
Another thing to keep in mind is if you did this yourself, this is just talking, but you save sales tax. So you buy materials, a lot of that stuff. So a lot of that material, a lot of these numbers will automatically get a 7% reduction right there, just on the taxing, because you can save that. You're fortunate enough to do that.
You don't get that if you don't contract it yourself. You don't get that.
No, sir, because the contractor would have to pay all the sales tax on everything you bought.
I know when this was built over here, we were paying for the material to keep from having to pay that percentage, and we worked that out with the Evans Group or whoever was doing the work. Our track record as contracting it ourselves hadn't been very good. We don't have anybody to go back on except ourselves, and I've got a problem with contracting it ourselves, regardless of what it costs. So I'd like to see us split the difference in these building sizes.
This project, so it's going to last 40 years? Is that what you're saying? Good for 40 years?
I would say this would suit your needs. It depends on how big of a building and what all that you did, but I would say that building would be there. It should last 40-plus years. I know some of them that have been similar buildings, been there for 30 years and are still in good shape.
So if we go with the Cadillac, we're talking $40,000 a year average, right?
Yeah. Here's something else to keep in mind to kind of put into your thinking. realistically, you're probably looking at maybe 1,500 more homes for build out. That assumes we don't have very much building west of Cortez. And that's what we've talked about, because almost all those lots are flowing to others. So that means we're not going to look to add a golf course. So your equipment needs and your employee needs are going to be pretty static. You'll add a little bit of equipment if you had 1,500 more homes, but the reality is we're pretty much set where we're going to be based on build out in terms of number of employees. You may add a few, but that'd be about it, and a little bit of equipment.
And what's the value of the equipment we have? Any idea?
Let's see, a couple $1 million easy.
Yeah, I would say that. Yes, right. We were going to try to add all that up.
So we got a couple $1 million sitting outside. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. And the current buildings, when we fill them up. I mean, Dave's building, it's slap full, especially in the evenings. When everything is, there's almost not a square foot left on it. There's something parked everywhere on the thing. So he fills up that building. Same with Public Works. They have all the gators that are out there that we run around. They fill up the whole aisleway with that. You have all the other tractors and whatnot. It fills those 2 pole barns up. And so that's why I was looking at just trying to match almost square footage of the existing pole barns. And put in some maintenance area, have some office space, and that's where I came up with that. Pretty much fit the same size building as what Avon Park had, and because that was something that we all are familiar with seeing, I just used that one. But it could be trimmed a couple feet here or there, however we need to do it to meet budget concerns.
You invested an awful lot of time in. Go ahead. You've been trying to get it. Go ahead.
In looking at your new plan here, I don't see a need for putting up that golf net.
That's just something we discussed.
Basically, because everything is now moved further back.
That's true. And yes, right.
And, the only time we're going to need a golf net there is when you got the pros here.
That's true.
We pick up golf balls out of that facility year round.
Yeah.
Are you using the forward tees again?
That's not something.
Kurt, I'm not up there with you.
That's not something that's critical, but it's something we discussed, so we put it in. So
right.
At least see what
well,
we're
it's
about.
41 grand that we could take out of this budget. That's all.
Right. There's a lot of that
If
can be trimmed.
If it becomes a problem, we can always add it back in and let the golf budget pay for it.
Right. I mean, we can take that building. I mean, we could say the 100 by 170 building that I have shown. I've got it at $765,000 at $45 a square foot. Well, we can, if we cut back on some of the things on the office, maybe not finish out as much office space inside, cut back on some of that, we can easily get it down to 500. Say, I mean, if we had a number that we wanted to hit. Right now, I don't have any numbers at all. I don't know what I'm shooting at a moving target. So I'm just shooting out there to see how I land, see where this goes, what do you want, and we can start tailoring it from there. So that's what we're looking for, some guidance here from you.
Is that tractor barn, is that an enclosed building, or is that just whatever you call it?
The existing one or the proposed
No, the new one.
The tractor barn would be an open one, similar to what's out there now, is what I had in mind, just in my mind. And we don't have to have that either. I added that on there because we have room to do it. That could be a future thing. That could be a couple years down the road if we wanted to. We could delay some of that.
Perhaps we better start shaving a little bit here and there to get to a more precise figure. But you've invested all sorts of time in trying to get permitting for this north entrance drainage project. And now in the latest communication we say this maintenance project is tied to the drainage project, right?
Actually, we've told you that several times.
Yeah, well, tell me again. So...
Tell them why, Gator.
What does that mean in terms of time frame again?
Okay, well, I kind of explained with the connection on that. The reason is because that area is about 2 to 3 acres of impervious area, which is included in the eastern basin. So we are increasing the impervious area, which affects the calculations on the retention ponds. While I was modifying the eastern basin, I said, oh, yeah, by the way, give us a block out here for about 3 acres of impervious area so we can pave our maintenance barn, and I'll send you the plans later for it. They said, no. If you're going to do it, if you're going to include it in this revision, we want to see plans for what you're going to do. Okay, so that put me back on the hot plate for getting something done here. Now, I went ahead and sent a response back to them because the time clock was ticking. I'd already asked for one extension. I wanted to get that Eastern Basin project rolling again, keep it back going. I sent in the plan that I'm showing you now. That's what I sent in to them. I can still modify that later on. That's not a problem to modify it. And I'm sure there will be some modifications to it, knowing that. But I had to send them something, so that's what I sent them in was that plan. So I have that in there to SwiftMud right now, but keep in mind that it can be modified, and I know it will be modified, but I had to send them something to get them something to review.
And it's much easier to modify and go ahead and get the clock started so that we don't lose a couple of months.
But that's all related to elevation and drainage, isn't it, Gator?
Right. It was all part of the whole drainage thing. I had to show that these buildings were going to be outside of the flood and to try to keep flood zone and everything else that goes along with it for a typical site plan that I normally have to do.
So the plan you sent them is the Cadillac plan, right?
I did send. That's the one I sent them was that one.
But it's the most impervious.
Right. Well, the amount of impervious area was about the same for either one.
Okay.
Like I say, the site cost were about the same to try to put Band-Aids on your existing site. But you don't really have a nice site.
What you don't want to do is just put Band-Aids on it.
Well, that's exactly. I know.
Project.
I agree 100%, and I mean all of us agree that's the case. But it was going to end up being about the same amount to do that as it would be to do the site work for this one new building. But to do that, we're removing the existing building, so now we have to replace those existing buildings, and so that's where the building costs are different. But the site work is about the same either way.
I'm inclined to fund a project that, number one, adequately, and I stress that, meets our needs in the short term, but yet takes into account our needs in the longer term with regards to expansion, so we don't tear something up to put something else in. That's the way I would do it, and that's what I'd like to see. If my colleagues agree, I'd like to see it costed that way.
Yeah, you don't even want to paint yourself in a corner, but we don't want to give away the ranch to...
Right.
Because we're all going to be gone 25 years from now.
Well, yeah. But, you've raised several issues, like the pole barn. We can, not put that in, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But, can you give us a cost profile based on that thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Short-term,
sure.
Properly meeting short-term needs, plan for longer term, see where we are? Because we're still talking about a tremendous increase in our budget.
Right, yeah, we're still going to be, to do it right, to do the site right, and not be patching and Band-Aiding it, you're still going to be more than the $400,000 that originally we were talking about. But I just hated to see us spend $400,000 on something and we're putting Band-Aids on something that's not going to be, that we're going to be spending.
It's wasted money.
Yeah, exactly. So before we wasted that, I just even put it to something to put it to better use and give our guys out there doing the work something better to work with and get their jobs done better, more efficiently. And protect the investment that you've already got in all your equipment. You've got several $1 million worth of equipment out there. So.
All righty. Any more comments from the board? You got your marching orders? Any public comment?
Gator, we can return the mic for us.
Yeah.
I apologize, I didn't ask for public comment on the sign program. Anybody have comments on that as well?
Good morning, Bill Norcross, a resident of Center Lake. On that sign renovation, I think it's a good project. I don't know which one that you want to take, but the only thing that I see in Turtle is changing the course pattern, which we have discussed earlier before about making the first hole the third hole, which was the original deal when it was 9 holes. And The reason why they went to the par 5, which is what they have now, as the first hole, is because early in the morning there's a tremendous amount of sun. You're starting on a tough par 4, and it makes it really difficult. And the way it would finish right now, if you change the pattern, you would have 7 par 4s, 1 par 3, 1 par 5 on 1-9. Then you would start on 12, and that doesn't make any sense. And you would have 3 par 3s, 3 par 4s, and 3 par 5s. You'd have to redesign your scorecard. You'd have to make a big change. I think that's one of the big objections that we have for that thing. Any comments?
Yeah, I can give you a few of these par 5s back to back. I've looked into that. Congressional has that on 9 and 10. Baldestra has that on 17 and 18. Seminole has that. Olympic has that. Cypress Point has that. So we're not doing anything that, if we made that change, that some of the best courses in the country.
Well, I understand that, but they probably don't have a lot of shotguns.
You never know.
Well, at Seminole, I don't think they do. But anyhow, starting on the 12th hole and trying to jam everybody out there on the par 3 may be another problem. Now, as far as this maintenance area, Dave Bell really needs this area, and I'm just curious to find out. He didn't mention the swapping area of where the oil and gas and the diesel area is on that map that he had. I thought it was going to be pushed up, if you're looking at it, up to the right, away from the water tanks.
It is. It is.
Is that correct?
Yes.
I didn't see it on the map. That's why I was curious.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, there it is there. It's up to the right.
Keep going.
Back on it.
You had it.
This would be the chemical wash fuel area.
Okay, it wasn't very visible there. I'm sorry.
Yes, I I'll point that out. That's where.
That's when they come in.
And the reason for that, I'll try to talk loud so I hope their microphone will pick me up. But the reason for that is so that when they're coming in, the equipment comes in, they turn in right there, do a right turn, they can fuel up, they can wash, and do whatever they need to do before they go in to the rest of the site. And so you have cleaners, equipment, and there on the way in.
All right, what about in the middle of the decking, there was a proposed for a cement platform for heavy equipment?
Right here, this one?
No, as the trucks would come in, if they spin around on asphalt, it was mentioned, which is very thoughtful.
That last one, right. That's why I left this area. It's shown gray on this one. I have that as being gravel. That's where they'll be coming in and turning. They'll be doing their turning here to back end, or turning in to back end here and turning around to come out. So I left that area as a gravel or a lime rock base.
So you've eliminated a concrete platform there.
Right. I've still got concrete here for the materials to be stored on, but I do have gravel, just a gravel, loose surface there for.
Well, if it works, okay. One other question too on the driving range. They had mentioned about fencing and net. If that berm that you have existing right now could be pushed back a little bit, raising at an angle, raising the elevation of a fence, you probably wouldn't need to have a netting up there. And then with the appropriate landscaping, it would really look much better. Okay? Thank you.
Pac-An Jemmy resident. I'm in favor of changing the Turtle Run golf course. I think it makes a lot of sense in respect to outside play and probably new members of our golf community that I can't tell you the number of times that when I was playing golf, people from outside had no idea how to get to Turtle Run. And they would always ask questions, and it's hard to direct them where there was no signage. So I'm in favor of that. It would have been nice to have Mr. Ford come up and say how much that would entail and how much difficulty it would be. I don't foresee it as that much difficulty, just changing the signs and the scorecards and maybe some other things that I haven't thought of. I know a lot of the people that have been involved in the beautification committee have put a lot of work into the community and especially into the roundabouts where they had put plants and everything. I'd like to see a contingency plan for any of the flora that is removed from the existing signage areas be moved into the strip, the medium strip that's along Sun and Lake Boulevard. That's mostly all grass. That could use some sprucing up, if you'll say. So that would be a good way to reuse those plants instead of having them disappear. The other thing that was not addressed was any type of irrigation to these areas, as well as vandalism. We've seen a lot of vandalism in this community. Are we going to plan to put any cameras or prevention auditing material on these signs that will be so expensive and easily vandalized?
Really, the only place we've had a lot of vandalism is here, and we changed the type of signage to where we don't have the vandalism anymore. We haven't had any vandalism on the entrance signs, and the other signage that we've lost has been basically vehicular related, where the car hit it.
Thank you. On the signs that will be non-illuminated, can they be made reflective so that when a car's headlights hit them, they will be able to read them? I mean, that's a consideration.
Mr. Rupp said that was an option.
I'd like to see that option. The signs that were in question about keeping or demoing, I'd like to see those kept but updated. And one last thing, on the sign that was brought up in the area of what we call the back entrance at Ortega and Orion, I think that could be eliminated altogether because, as mentioned by the board, it is used mostly by the residents here who know where to go and everything. I think that is a useless sign. And once the budget is determined, I hope there's a contingency put in for the overrun. I know that initially it was mentioned that $250,000 was set initially for the budget, and I'm sure it will come to much more, but I think it's a good idea to do all the signage. It would be much more attractive and welcoming to the community. Thank you.
Tom Costi, resident. With regard to the signage, in the discussion about the attractiveness of I believe it was option number 1, signs versus the readability of some bolder letters that might not be as attractive, I think the emphasis should be on the aesthetics as opposed to the utility of these signs. People who are looking for those signs, looking for the wording, are mostly visitors and people are looking to find their way. And they're only going to be in that position a handful of times until they get to know their way around. The residents that live here and the people that have established their homes here are going to be looking at the aesthetics on a daily basis. And in addition to that, the aesthetics are going to have a bigger effect upon just the ambiance of the entire district when people are considering coming here. So that's just my thought about as you look at the pros and cons of one type of lettering on these signs versus another. If the lettering is adequate on the more attractive signs and the costs were the same, I would recommend that the aesthetics take a precedent. With regard to changing the layout of the golf course, I know we've had this discussion before, but looking at both sides of that issue, keep in mind, the front 9 that's been proposed today would end in the boondocks. The back 9 would begin in the boondocks. The way it was proposed today. Number 2 would be number 18, the way we're proposing it. And if you think about actually number 10, beginning the back 9, would be actually number 12, which is almost as far away as you can get from the clubhouse. And as Bill said, we would end up with one par 3 and one par 5 on the front 9. And we would end up with 3 of each on the back 9. Keep that in mind.
Let's see where that's a problem.
Gene Gangemi, resident. The presentation was very good. The only thing that I would probably would have done differently was to have a board review of the signs here versus these that a lot of people probably could not see. As far as the lettering goes on the signs, whether you have raised lettering like this, that I remember several years ago, the signs to Man Hill entrance, some of the letters were destroyed. I don't know whether vandals thought they were pure gold, but they were just plastic, and the plastic signs were very expensive. Change, I think, 7 or 8 letters was somewhere around $600. So that's a consideration. Have a sign, either you have it embedded into the sign itself. Anything raised letters, I think, might be a problem. Let me get to the area where the second roundabout, they were talking about lights and moving lights. Is this a precursor to maybe that old-time proposal to bury the power lines coming into the district? Because if you're thinking of spending $4 to $5 million or even $6 million to bury power lines, I think you ought to spend the $1 million on the maintenance shed and protect your expense with $2 million worth of equipment that's out there from the elements and also people that may want to take it for a joyride or whatever. I'm thinking about changing hole number 3 to hole number 1. I think it would make it easier for the non-residents or first-time users to find it versus trying to go up to Columbus Boulevard to get to the Bonnie Drive and try to figure a way from there. But the signage is pretty bad. Maybe making the cutout going up to Turtle Run, have it cut across at the Rotary versus trying to go on the left side by the district and halfway up you got to cross Columbus Boulevard. Maybe the traffic pattern might be something you might want to look at. And the signage that has been proposed today is very, very, very good. One thing, it takes away the old time, the ball with the golf ball and whatever that other thing is, the sun. It's been referred to as the fried egg. So maybe changing that, we're just putting it in a little more perspective to what it really is. So. It's what?
They took the golfer off.
Not on all of them. Not on all of them. The golfer's there. Oh, and the other thing is when you look at some of the signs, it shows Turtle Run, shows the turtle, very nice, stands out because it has contrast. When you look at the Deer Run sign, it just has the deer. But you don't, it's black. Most of them are brown, so you might want to change some of that. But this is something you can work out. And also the lettering should be bold as the directional signs go into the district office or the clubhouse. And the little circles with the arrows in it, I mean, you're coming along, something like Boulevard, and you're trying to look at, at old eyes, you're trying to look at it, which way is that turtle, which way is that arrow going? So maybe you ought to just have the plain, arrowhead, Indian arrowhead, things like that. But it was a good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the board. Next on the action agenda is resolution number 2015-02/27-06. A resolution of Sun and Lake Sebring Improvement District to approve the revision of the policy on the final adaptation of I'm losing it here. Process to include provisions for the appealing of the assessment and the finality of the assessment.
Motion approved.
Second.
John?
Yes, sir.
At the last board meeting, we were directed to prepare this and bring it forward. So I've excuse me, I've drafted a proposed revision to the district budget. I'll just go over it very briefly. Would you like me to summarize this for the purpose of the folks listening and everything? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
This would be an amendment to the final budget adoption on D1004. Essentially what it does is once the board adopts the final budget and then you mail it out, this establishes an annual appeal committee that would hear any potential appeals, consisting of one supervisor, the district comptroller, and one property owner. I suppose if you couldn't find a willing property owner, two supervisors could sit because you are all property owners, but that would be up to the board. A notice detailing the appeals process will be posted on the district website, but the main thing is it would be included on the mailings the assessments that go to each property owner. Then the appeal committee would hear any appeals. The appeals deadline is November 30th, and that's one of the main reasons we're doing this, is to establish some finality for the assessment appeal process. The November 30th date was chosen because if we just did 60 days from the final budget adoption, many times the bills aren't even mailed out until sometime in October. It could arguably be adopted in August, and the appeals process would have run before they even mailed out the assessments. So the November 30th date was chosen, after which time any right to appeal would expire, be deemed waived, and then the appeal committee would make recommendations to the board for final action. The board would take final action. I would point out to you that with respect to the board action, this would not be a totally new presentation or an opportunity to reappeal before the board. You would have to have public comment, and you can, of course, limit time for public comment, and that would be appropriate in such a circumstance, I believe. So this was a process that was brought before you for your consideration, and that's where we're at now, sir.
This doesn't require a special mailing.
No, does not.
Okay.
The mailing would be included with the notice of the assessment.
We've gone back and forth on this, and remember, you and I have been around here a long time. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. Okay, but what happened back in August of 2008? You were the attorney. I was on the board at that time. I think Mr. Jan Jimmy was on the board at that time. Maybe not, but no, I don't think you were. But anyway, this started out as a general manager's report. And Al Resaver said the maintenance assessment appeals procedure to appoint an administrative review board is considered redundant, and since there were multiple notices, public hearings, and opportunities for citizens to input at public meetings, it is requested that this policy item be waived through consent of the board. If consent is granted, a resolution will be prepared and provided at the next board meeting of supervisors meeting under the consent agenda. And the consent of the board was given unanimously, and this resolution was supposed to be brought at the next meeting. I don't think it ever was, because I couldn't find a record of it. But everybody considered it to be redundant, and I frankly had the same feeling about it myself. And John, you were the attorney at the time. You had no objection to striking it out of the policy manual, and it's been stricken out of the policy manual. When it was rewritten, there's nothing in the policy manual anymore for it. So, it's just. I guess if we have to have it, we have to have it, but it looks to me like we're just back and forth.
The problem, sir, is this, that the vast majority of property owners never participate for one reason or another. Either they're not physically here, or they work during the day or whatever. But the vast majority of property owners do not participate in either the budget adoption process or the board hearing. They simply get their assessment in the mail. That's the first notice they have of what the actual adopted assessment is going to be, and proceed from there. I'm not looking for an avalanche of appeals, but at the same time, my concern is simply this. as a matter of, and you've heard these words before, due process. In other words, some meaningful right to appeal the assessment. If you wish to rely upon the board meetings and the opportunity to participate as the budget is developed, we'll go with that. That's up to you. But my recommendation is there's some due process in it, and this would answer the mail.
If we elected to do this, would we have to create a committee now, or would we just kind of wait until we need one?
This year's done.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The reason this whole thing came to the fore is the Mr. Roberts situation, as we all know. So,
okay. All righty. Anything else from the board? Public comment? Tom Costi will give you the mic. He wants to. Give Larry the mic.
I'm sorry. I didn't notice. There you go, Larry.
I'm Larry Stange, President of Property Owners Association. John, you get the same mail I do, don't you?
I don't believe so. I'm not a property owner here.
According to the mail I got, we're under 189. Also, the county commissioners have no say-so over this special district except to do away with it is the only thing they have to say. Did you get that?
I did not get that. I would not agree with that at all. We frequently go to the commission to modify the enabling act which they created. So the only input they have is not simply to make it go away. They routinely modify the procedures applicable to the district, and primarily upon our request.
Well, what I have, the district or the county commissioners have no say-so except to dissolve it. And it all goes to Tallahassee. They have control over the district, and we are a 189. Now, it also mentions some other statutes that we have to follow, but we are under 189. My information from Tallahassee.
Very good. I've routinely made that opinion.
Pardon?
I said I've routinely made the opinion that we're subject to Chapter 189. I don't know what your point is.
Well, the point is, as the discussion went, the county commissioners have no say-so over us. It's Tallahassee.
Well, I respectfully disagree.
I can show it to you.
That's good. That's fine. That's whatever.
Okay.
The bottom line is this is not to do with the county. It's not to do with the legislature. It's everything to do with this governing board and their procedures that they utilize with respect to setting the assessment and a potential appeal. This has got nothing to do with Chapter 189 or 125 or anything else.
Well, I'm just saying that they set the rules that we have to follow.
To some degree, but we set our own policies, and that's what we're doing here. So, okay.
Tom Costi, resident. I've researched the minutes of those meetings that took place back in 08 and 09 with regard to the appeal committee. We did have an appeal committee for many years here. There's records in the minutes that are online going back to the years 2000, 2001 when the appeals committee did meet. And for the most part denied any changes to the assessments. But those committees met during the budget process much earlier in the year than what's been proposed here. This is my understanding that the statutes do require that once the assessment roll is finalized, that there's no changing it except by court order, which the assessment rolls normally gets finalized earlier than November 30th.
You are, just for clarification, Mr. Costi, you are referring to ad valorem tax procedure methodology where the tax roll is certified by the county after the ad valorem appeal. Okay.
I can't remember the exact wording on that, but I also just did want to point out that proposal to eliminate that procedure that we used to have, which stated that an initial estimate of the annual budget was to have been made in May. There was a deadline. And it was to have been sent out with a notice to all the assessment payers of what the assessment amount would be for their category. That was to have been sent out I believe in like early August, giving the people time to come to a budget hearing and voice their objections twice during two public hearings. And to get all of that done before the final budget was approved, which has to be, at that time, in that procedure, according to the minutes, and the policy manual that was in effect at that time, all that had to be done by September 1st. In the fall of 2008, it was presented to the board for consideration. At that same time, Special District Services was in here performing a special audit on the internal affairs of the district. It was Mr. Pete Pimentel. And it was while it had been presented to the board that was an unnecessary and redundant procedure to go through to have this appeal process. The staff's recommendation was that it be eliminated. It was decided by the board at that time to table it until the internal audit was completed, and to bring it up at a future meeting, which actually did occur in June of 2009. I believe it was June 12th of 2009. It came before the board, and all of that wording, which specified the dates that all of this had to be done, all of that was voted on and struck from the policy manual that had been in effect prior to that time. And on the basis that it was, after all this consideration, it was considered unnecessary and redundant. And now we're reinventing the wheel. I don't see the need. Thank you.
I would also point out, as I recall, much of that discussion dealt with the timeliness of preparation of the budget, because going all the way back to May was a real issue, and the board never seemed to be able to get the right numbers in effect to get the budget done in a timely fashion to comply with those types of time frames. The issue is simply this. The due process issue is we do the budget early, we send everybody out notices, which is a separate mailing, and you would review all of these numbers, and the appeal process would run, and then the budget would be certified and mailed out. That is a process that requires backing up into the May time frame. What I was suggesting here, just to make it simple, because it's a minimal change and does not require new mailing, is the process you have before you. Again, I would emphasize to you, this, in my opinion, is a challenge waiting to happen without the due process issue. Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe the budget hearings are satisfactory. But I think if you were to go with just the budget hearings and someone were to seriously challenge this without an opportunity to really have seen what their assessment was going to be before with no appeal process, I think we would have some kind of problem. But it's your call. You can adopt whatever procedures you want, change nothing, change this, do whatever you want.
Well, I think back in 2008 is when they were raising the assessment every year 5%, and we haven't raised it for the last 6 years or whatever it was. And I think there was probably a lot of concerned residents at that time. But
I agree.
Gene
Ganjami, resident. Just for the record, Mr. Halbert brought up that I probably was a board member in 2008. It's not correct. I was a board member from 2010 to 2014. Just for the record, just to clarify that. And the other question that I have, and I think
Mr. McClure and I have talked about this before, that as far as getting residents to attend the board meetings, I think we came up with an idea. We might try a evening meeting. We tried that, and I think about 7 people showed up to the board meeting. So the thing is, how do we interest people and get them motivated to come down and see a budget hearing where you're looking at $10 million, whatever it is, the amount of money we're owed, $40+ million, to come down and say, what's going on? And if I can't come during the day, then maybe we ought to have an evening meeting. Maybe we ought to have a weekend meeting or something like that. But if the interest isn't put out to them, whether it's in a quick mailing with the water bill or something like that, say, hey, we're talking about this. And I think the first thing we ought to do is with this landscaping project, put that in the bulletin and say, hey, we've got a meeting here and it's going to cost some money. You might want to come down and take a look at that. So, just my thoughts. Thanks.
The proven method for increasing attendance is to increase assessment.
I was just going to say, let's raise assessment 20%. That'll get in here. All right, back to the board.
That was a mistake. We didn't mean that. Now that you're all here.
Allison, call the roll, please.
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Halbig?
Yes.
Supervisor White?
Yes.
Supervisor Holbert?
Yes.
President McCullough?
Yes. Next. Okay.
Allison, I know we've got a date in here, but it wouldn't be a bad idea just to tag that for the board's knowledge when that kicks in.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
Add-on items. Petitions, communications. Staff reports.
Attached.
Any comments? He said attached. So.
Not quite, Mike. You have in your latest communication to us, your status report, you talk about bid openings on the tennis courts. Can you expand and clarify on that? Clarify that?
Yes, sir. We put the bids out per the instructions we had several months ago to basically remove the existing asphalt and put in new asphalt.
Well, where does, what's the firm's name that did the asphalting?
Oh, you're talking about the company that, Welch, that did the surfacing on top?
Yeah.
They will come in after the asphalt's down.
So this is apart from any any participation?
This has to be done prior to that.
Yes.
Okay. And then just as a point of clarification, is Gator going to come back to us before or by or at the next meeting regarding exactly what recommendation is for the project and the costing?
We're going to talk about that. The problem we run into is whatever has to be done between now and Thursday. Because that's when the agendas and that's when everything is shipped to you. I will tell you this, the golf bids are probably going to be coming out under separate cover because we don't open them until Friday. We had to move them back a date. So that may come out under separate cover on Monday, and depending on the conversation he and I have on modifying his numbers, that may come under separate cover too, but I'd like to do it by the next meeting, for the next meeting.
Well, that's what I had in mind.
That's what we're going to shoot for.
So we will have a clear sense of direction, both in terms of what we're doing and what the cost would be.
That's my goal.
Okay.
But I can't predict when I'm going to get in bids on the other projects.
Well, I just want to get it down to a point that we're comfortable with what we're talking about here.
That's been the goal all along.
John McClure, you're up.
Okay, sir. Number one, the tax exemption has been filed and all the requested documentation has been provided to Mr. McIntyre. It's currently under review. He did, when I spoke with him regarding what all we needed to turn in and everything, he indicated to me that He likened our operation to the city of Sebring, which is also under a management contract, and he felt that if he didn't commit, but he said upon review of all the documents, he felt it was likely that we would be granted the exemption. So there we go. So we'll see how that shapes up. But the exemption has been filed. It is under review.
Okay.
The other thing I would point out is there's been a motion for summary judgment, again filed by the council for Mr. Digert in the Severino case. Essentially what he was saying is that pursuant to depositions taken of certain of the plaintiffs, they have indicated that they were solely seeking recourse against Mr. Severino and not against Mr. Digert, and so he's trying to get Mr. Digert dismissed as a defendant in those cases where they said that in the deposition. That's also been scheduled to be heard at the same time that the matter will be heard for the Gonzalez motion for summary judgment. That you might recall that was made based on the fact that several of the plaintiffs had never even contacted the district, so how could they say they were relying on the district to have made positive recommendations of endorsement? So those are both, excuse me, I think scheduled to be heard. I forgot to write it down, but it's either March 27th, 28th, sometime in that time frame. It's the end of March period. Also, just a heads up for you, yeah, that's right. I was going to say I wouldn't be at the second March meeting, but we don't have a second March meeting, so we're good with that. If we did have, I wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So that's the end of my report, sir.
All righty. Thank you. Unfinished business. New business. Committee reports. Silence. Public comment. Back to the board. Anything else? Yes, sir. Everybody?
One thing, Mike, this maintenance thing we were talking about, I don't know who's really in charge over there, but we were going to see about getting that debris cleaned up.
Oh, that.
You know what I'm talking about, where we put all the rubbish that we clean up.
Yeah, that's primarily.
Where are we at on that? Greg?
When's the drum coming back?
Okay.
These lots on 27 that supposedly going to get, what's the timing on that? When do you?
What's the timing, Ms. Candidate? It'll probably take 30 to 60 days, probably.
Is there a cost involved in that?
Some
minimal legal costs. We got to prepare deeds and ship it to them.
Okay.
Wait a minute. I got a question.
That's fine.
Did we ever settle up on the end of Cortez? Remember that gentleman was going to swap out those two lots that he owns right at the end of Cortez that go out to Schumacher?
We're working on that now. That's Tanya sent that to me. To get that.
Okay, so that we could run Cortez right to Schumacher, and he was going to take some other lots.
Right, and as a parallel to that, the county, through the achievement process, owns the lots in between. And I've met with them, and I think they'll give us those. There's actually 4 lots.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll give us those, which is the other missing piece.
Okay. So we could actually have Cortez go all the way to Schumacher.
You'll have the right-of-way.
Have the right-of-way.
And that's our goal.
Okay. Very good.
Good. Meeting adjourned. A little louder.